Girls, what makes a guy creepy? When a guy won't give you your space, even when you implicitly or explicitly make it clear that you want your space. Without giving too many details, when I was younger, the sweet guy became creepy to me because he wouldn't leave me alone even when I said I wanted time to myself. If they can't respect your boundaries, get out, and fast. Also, if they expect you to explain your boundaries. I'm not sure if creepy is the right word, but it's downright unattractive. I was becoming kind of close with this frat boy. He invited me to semi-no strings attached. Very beginning, he was like, I know frats have a stigma, but I don't want to pressure you into anything at all. And I was like, no worries. When I don't want to do something, I flat out say no. Then he proceeded to challenge me every time I said no to something throughout the whole semi and every party I went to with him after that. I asked if he could hug me. I said I wasn't really comfortable with that. He waited like 5 minutes, then kept trying to hug me anyway. And I would be like, no, I don't want to do that. And he kept demanding to know why. Even would be like, so you don't like hugging? Why are you cool with hugging your parents then? Always tried to get me to drink more, and when I said I'm done, he'd want to know why. Tell me the party was just getting started, etc. Didn't bring a bathing suit to college, but that wasn't enough of an explanation for why I wouldn't go swimming with him and his brothers. I mean, I could just go in undergarments, right? If I didn't want grass, I had to explain why. If I didn't want ALC when his frat bro was going to get some, he wanted to know why. If I didn't want to go to a party, he's trying to get me to explain why. He was always prying, like he was trying to get me to realize I don't have a good reason why. I don't know. Maybe he hoped that would cause me to change my mind. It was just downright disrespectful. Good job, buddy. I go out of my way to avoid you and most of your brothers now. I think that wanting to know why is a challenge for a lot of dudes. Story 2. When you don't reply immediately, he gets sad or needs something from you or texts to make you feel bad. I went on a few dates with a very needy and insecure guy. Unfortunately, I worked with him too, which was a bad choice. Don't date coworkers. But I didn't realize how bad it was at first. He'd get super upset if I didn't reply to his texts right away or spend all my free time talking to him. One day I just wanted some space and didn't really feel like talking to people. Normal introverted things. So I told him that I didn't feel like talking and that I'd see him the next day at work. Nope. He kept calling me over and over again. So eventually I just answered the phone and told him to stop and then hung up. Didn't stop, so I blocked his number. The next day at work, he tried to talk to me, telling me that what I did really hurt his feelings. All guilt-trippy. While I'm working, not even on a break, I'm just like, no, this isn't the time or place for this. After that, I realized just how messed up he was and broke it off and just ignored his existence until he quit a few weeks later. Haven't seen him since, and I ain't mad. Yeah, that dude is seriously unhealthy. Story 3. Not respecting boundaries. Not listening and not treating you like an equal human being are my top 3 red flags. Respecting boundaries means they don't invade your personal space. Common rules of society are followed and they don't keep pushing to touch or interact or initiate conversations or relationships. If you're hovering around me, trying to distance me from safety or my friends, keep staring at me, following me after I say no, etc., you are a creep to me. I sense danger and am uncomfortable with this. Stop. No hugging. Get away. Listening is a crucial skill in general, but tells me whether or not I want to be near you or if you respect me. Not listening or treating my opinions as valid means you're probably not someone who understands no and may try to manipulate or hurt me. I'm not a piece of meat, a potential layer of someone's property. Respect me as your equal and human. The scariest creeps don't seem to see you as human. You're their object, something to chase. Fourth, that isn't always the case, is a lack of social awareness or being oblivious of social rules, as it can lead to uncomfortable misunderstandings, or much worse, when combined with the other 3. Story 4. Acting like you're a different person if you have a push-up garment or makeup on. Double if they only notice you or treat you nicely that way. To clarify what I mean and what guys I'm talking about, the creepy guys in this case are usually a casual acquaintance who may be dating or married or only known in a professional way, or have clearly stated they're not into you and just a friend. Obviously, if I'm talking about a dude I'm flirting with and they amp it up because I'm dressing up for them, is different. I'm also not talking about when I go out and more strangers approach. I know I'm going to get more attention dressed up in general than when I'm not. I am specifically referring to men who have seen me before and after and will only interact in a positive way if I'm conventionally attractive, and otherwise won't acknowledge my existence. These guys should not change given the nature of the relationship because it's not romantic or physical in nature. Examples of what I meant. The guys, often boyfriends, friends, or coworkers, saying you look sickly without makeup. Making a huge deal if you wear makeup or anything more overtly feminine when it's not their place. i.e., a coworker fixating on your outfit and not just a casual compliment, literally assuming you're not straight after you cut your hair or not speaking to you till it's an acceptable length, literally not recognizing you because of a push-up garment, literally not recognizing you due to makeup, trying to verify you more because of these changes, pats on the arm, side hugs you wouldn't normally get, treating you in an entirely different way. All of a sudden discussing their life or relationships and making lots of crude jokes. This goes in regards to coworkers specifically. I know my friends may need or have reason to chat about these things. Another example. A cool casual friend one day to a love interest the next, due to these things, then reverting back to casual friend in the span of an outfit change. These are all real damn examples. A huge chunk has happened in my place of work or with people who have explicitly said they're not into me. Also, I typically dress pretty modestly at work given my career field. It's not an appropriate place for fixation on my outfits or to make more than a passing compliment given I work in front of teenagers. I may dress up for my partner or for me. The whole world shouldn't change just because of that. I'm okay with a few extra head turns or getting more compliments. I'm not okay with fixation and you switching your entire damn personality. If you didn't have the time of day for me before, and after now finding me fascinating, I know it's not my thoughts you give to care about. This also goes along the line with being a woman's friend while she's single, then ghosting the second she's in a relationship. It's like, once I'm not easy to you, I mean nothing. It goes back to the root of creepiness, not treating women like people. Story 5. Once a co-op student, I was a senior engineer, cornered me in our tiny coffee room to tell me he didn't understand why I changed my hair. He liked it better blonde. At 5'2", it's 8 in the morning, and I'm cornered by a kid who has never spoken a word to me before but is 6'2" easily, and I can't get around him. Also had another co-op student breathe on the back of my neck while I was doing some material testing as a way of getting my attention. Or he said he would help me if I helped him. He was my co-op student. He literally got paid to help me. This kid had finally threatened to report to his school and said I would trash his professionalism grade if he tried that again. It didn't help until I made it clear to all my co-ops that allowing him to act that way would affect their professionalism grades too. Then he behaved. Even though I was the senior person in both circumstances, their lack of respect for space and their clear flirting was so out of place. Given their size, it could be really intimidating, especially since I often got in earlier, worked late, and that is when these kids would choose to be creepy. Story 6. I was talking to this guy on OkCupid. We went on one date, but what gave me the creeps was that at least 4 times in the 2 weeks we were chatting online before the date, he kept saying he liked my hair straightened, all because of one photo I had of me with straight hair. I was so not straightening my hair for the date. The date ends and he asks if there will be a second one. I was too polite to straight up say no. I said we will see, and we both left separately. After that, he messaged me multiple times a day asking the same questions and asking why I wasn't talking. I disabled my account for a month or so, but when I came back, he had asked why I disabled my account. He kept messaging me multiple times a day. I eventually blocked him. He sounded way too controlling. I definitely dodged that. Story 7. I'm bi. If I ever dare mention this to a straight guy for any reason, he will either ask if I want to have a triad with him as a girlfriend or comment how my boyfriend must be so lucky that he can have a triad with me. Once I was talking to a man and the topic came up. He lamented how lucky I am to be bi because his girl just won't let him bring another girl home. She's so uncomfortable about the idea of sleeping with another girl for him. So I asked him, well, why don't you sleep with another guy for her? Then maybe she'll be okay with another girl. He argued, but that's different. Don't get me wrong. I would, at some point in my life, like to have a triad, but I hate that that is the first thing that guys go to. They ask me and they never actually have the girlfriend present or ask her first. I'd be way more comfortable if the girl asked instead of the guy. Story 8. Men, we get it. Women can be hard to read. Please learn to watch for and understand body cues. Women tend to be polite in uncomfortable situations because we fear how men will retaliate if we aren't. So a woman you're speaking to might keep answering your questions and even laugh or smile, but if she constantly looks away, avoids eye contact, looks down at her phone, or leans away when you lean in, please back off. Body language will let you know how we're actually feeling. I take public transportation a lot, and men will sometimes begin to talk to me even though I have big headphones on. I will take them off, politely answer a question, then put them back on. This should be a clear sign that means, I'm done with this conversation, thank you. I can't believe the amount of times that a man will continue to try talking to me. I've had to pretend to get off the train and move to a different car multiple times, because questions started becoming invasive despite me trying as hard as I can to politely disengage. Story 9. Speaking too quietly for the situation is an excuse to stand too close. Leering. There's a difference between someone staring at me as if I will be the next addition to their ungodly collection. Guys who are legitimately uncomfortable with how proficient I am with my pocket weapon make me think that they were hoping to do things that might cause me to use said pocket weapon. I work retail and have had customers ask for me by name and leave without buying anything when they find out I'm not there, and then waste my time with dumb questions when I am there. After a long conversation about how happy I am in my current relationship, say, "Your husband doesn't treat you right. I'll take you away." After all I said about my personal life is that I was married. Wait until my coworkers were out of earshot to ask if I want to be friends, then hovering continuing to talk about how we should be friends. And then, after I got a coworker to help said customer, saying things about me to my coworker that my coworker wasn't comfortable telling me. Rinse and repeat every couple of months. Try to tuck money into one of my pockets after I said that accepting a tip would get me fired. Story 10. Asking us out in the undergarment section of Walmart and staring made me a little uncomfortable when a guy did this, and then I kept awkwardly running into him throughout the grocery area. Eventually, he whispered from an aisle I was passing, gave me the come here motion so he could, again, persistently tell me how pretty I was and that he didn't want it to seem creepy that he wouldn't take no for an answer. He kept stressing how much he wanted my number. I got some weird vibes from the way he talked, so instead I gave him my Snapchat, which I barely use and has no personal info in it. This satisfied him enough to let me check out in peace. I blocked him after an hour of chatting, which was mainly him ranting about his sad life and low self-esteem. His words. It got to the point where he wouldn't stop begging to talk on the phone and got really angry when I kept refusing. I'll never forget his last text. "Can I at least call you so I can vent about this?" Story 11. I bumped into a colleague when I was on a night out with friends. He asked if I had a boyfriend, to which I replied I was engaged and had a child. He laughed, maniacally. The next weekend, he found me on social media and messaged me asking to go out with him and his friends. I didn't reply, so the next morning he messaged me again to ask if I'd been out the night before. This continues every weekend for a few months. He then reduced the messages to one weekend a month. Considering I had not answered even one of his messages and had mentioned my partner multiple times in verbal conversations, it came across as creepy. The messages then stopped for a few months. In 2019, I was pregnant with my second when he messages me again, asking if I have a boyfriend. By this point, I was a very noticeable 7 months pregnant. I worked in the same building and saw each other at least 3 times a week, and I was wearing our very distinctive maternity uniform. He is the creepiest man I've met by far. Story 12. I'm a guy, but my best friend is a girl, and she has a guy at work that constantly leaves notes in her locker. He's convinced that me and her are dating, so he's always rude to me. In his letters, he talks about me and how I don't want to push you into the arms of another man like my name. He also texted her one day saying, "I changed your name in my phone to Delicious," then refers to her as D on a regular basis, even though her name doesn't start with a D. He cornered her in a room once after she told him she was not interested and started slamming things and throwing things. I took her out with me one day and she got a small cut when she took it like a champ, and he found out and came up to me and tried to stand over me. I'm taller than him but skinnier, and said, "If you hurt her again, it will be the last thing you do." As he tried to squeeze my hand and I simply replied, "Do not threaten me." Really creepy guy. And it's awful for my friend because she's super sweet. Doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it truly gives her anxiety just thinking about working with him. Story 13. I know this isn't all of them, but from my experience, insisting that I have a conversation with him whenever I'm around. Sometimes I just happen to be there. I don't always want to have a conversation every time I step into a room or log into an online account. Even if I have the time to and choose to do something else, that doesn't mean I don't enjoy his company. I just don't always have the energy for a pointless conversation. It's gone to the point where I've specifically asked people to turn off their notifications because one guy kept trying to message me every time I did something on Twitter. He started to get upset with me whenever I chose to just watch YouTube videos and live streams in my free time, because I guess I could always just say hi or message him while watching or something. Also, he responded to every comment, tweet, and retweet I did, which, even if well-intentioned, freaked me out. Maybe I'm paranoid, but I gave off the feeling like he was watching my every move. I didn't use Twitter for months, and I've since stopped almost altogether. People have lives. Do something with your own. It doesn't make you uninteresting if someone's not in the mood to talk. Story 14. I think it's 75% context, even more than content. Obviously saying bizarre or threatening things. Encroaching on physical boundaries or not taking no for an answer will make anything creepy. Not creepy also doesn't guarantee you a positive reaction. Not creepy could still be wildly inappropriate and ill-advised for other reasons, but even if you're considering purely the creepiness factor of any particular neutral approach, I think there's a sort of 2D plot of inherent creep factor that could be made with level of familiarity on one axis and socialness of situation on the other. Such that in one corner you have good friend at a house party, and in the opposite you have stranger on the street at night. You could add a z-axis for social or physical threat level, with your 30 years older boss on one end and a little kid with a crush on the other. Fellow intern? Not creepy. Landlord? Creepy. Neighbor at the grocery store? Not creepy. Last week's Uber driver at the grocery store? Creepy. Strangers at a nightclub? Not creepy. Stranger in the public bus? Creepy. This isn't limited to guys approaching girls for purposes either. The same goes for any genders, and the same goes for any time you want to approach someone to ask them for something. Overall, magnitude of creepiness might look different for different requests, but the same plot could be made for trying to sell people stuff, asking people to donate to your political cause, or asking people for restaurant recommendations. Story 15. Disrespecting or outright ignoring either a no or a stated boundary. I've seen guys asking women out for drinks or a date or whatever, and the woman says no. The next response from these guys was, why not? Because it does not occur to them that no is a whole sentence. No woman, or anyone of any gender identity, as a matter of fact, is obliged to provide you feedback on why they do not find you attractive enough to date. No is not encouragement to further discussion. If she wants to tell you why, she will, but chances are you're just not her type or what she's looking for. That doesn't make you a creep. She's simply using her right to say no. It doesn't make her a witch or cold or any other insult that gets thrown at a woman by a certain type of man when she exercises her right to say no. When the no is not respected, it tells a woman that if he's not willing to respect the basic idea that she has the right to make her own decisions, he's unlikely to respect the big stuff around consent and boundaries. It's really awful to like someone and not have them like you back. It hurts, and there's no way around that. Sadly, Western society often does not teach men how to handle their negative emotions in a healthy way. Often does teach men and women that women are somehow commodities to be acquired rather than people to be respected. When you combine this, you get a certain section of men who cannot handle respect for rejection. I'm active in the scene in the UK, and as a result, I chose to surround myself with people who value communication, boundaries, and consent, because these are actively taught in the scene and actively expected in the events I attend. Anyone not able to respect boundaries or consent, including withdrawal of consent if they're no longer enjoying themselves, is swiftly kicked out and will no longer be welcome at future events. Sometimes I feel we need that kind of social responsibility in wider society. Story 16. I'm 26 and I work in tech with mostly men. When I met my now husband, one of my male coworkers, who was 42, suddenly began commenting on my relationship and my appearance a lot more. He kept telling me that men are only ever after one thing, that the relationship wouldn't work out, that I was being naive and didn't understand how the world worked. For some context, he was single but trying to date, but hated dating women his age because they were all crazy and had too much baggage. He was a schmuck but had some redeeming qualities, so I usually brushed him off and we stayed friends on social media. My husband was the perfect boyfriend, and I never felt unsafe or manipulated by him. After our engagement, I could see what my coworkers had seen, but he completely ignored me when I got back to work. We eloped a month later, short turnaround time, and I knew he saw it too. When I returned to work, my coworker was ignoring me completely. I didn't want or need the satisfaction of proving him wrong, despite the fact that he was so rude to me about my relationship and constantly trying to make me question it. I knew he'd had a crush on me, but the age difference and lack of emotional maturity on his end never allowed me to take him seriously. But the most annoying, the most creepy thing is that he made it evident to me that he only saw me as a romantic interest and could not accept me as a friend or celebrate my happiness. With an almost 20-year age gap between us, I found that to be inappropriate and rude. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 17. Guys that get overly friendly. I had a guy that started talking to me at the gym because he'd see me there often. That's fine, but every day he would find me and work out next to me and wouldn't stop talking to me. I repetitively told him to let me work out alone, and he refused or would just kind of hang around the area I was at. It got to the point that I changed my schedule because he would do it all the time. He would even stay later just to hang out, especially when I told him I just wanted to work out alone. One day he saw me at a store and started following me around the store, telling me he'd walk me to my car. I had enough and told him to get off or I'd call the cops on him because he was being a creep. I canceled my gym membership and refused to go back. Story 18. Blocking exits was recently something I noticed happening to my work partner. We work in duos, but one of our delivery drivers, he would always block her path,
aggressively flirt, even sometimes come up behind her and whisper comments into her ear. She's a little 4'9" Puerto Rican woman, and she's feisty, and I ask her if she wanted me to do something about it. I never just do it, as I don't want to put the woman in an uncomfortable position. I let people fight their own battles unless they ask me for help. She said no, and that if he did it again, she'd snap. Just last week, he came up to her and said, "What's up, bad bitch?" And it was like a Krakatoa exploding. She went in. I've never seen a man's ego destroyed so heartily, so quickly. She then told HR, they pulled cameras, and you got let go that day. I was proud of my little homie. Story 19. Telling me personal things about myself. I had a guy at my old job mention that I took a different route to work one morning. Then he said a mix of letters and numbers. When I asked what that meant, he said, "That's your license plate, right?" Another time he was standing behind me at the time clock and said my clock and code before I entered it. Also, he cornered me in a room and tried to kiss me. It was so awkward because his wife was my supervisor, and I was his superior. I was the nurse and he was the CNA. On top of that, I was a new nurse and not at all comfortable in my role yet. I ended up telling my coworkers to keep us apart and make sure he didn't follow me into rooms after that last part. Very creepy. Yo, that sounds like a restraining order. Story 20. Actually, I had a guy say, "I don't take no for an answer," to me after I told him I didn't want to go on a date with him. I walked away from him and back to my office. This was in a college campus building. I had a horrible feeling the rest of the day. Fast forward to quitting time and I have to walk half a mile to the parking garage. I saw a coworker about to head that way and asked if he didn't mind walking with me. Turns out the student followed us there and tried to get into my car when I unlocked it. Thank God I had my coworker with me who scared him away. Yes, the campus police were involved and the student was identified. He was banned from the building I worked in. Turns out 2 other girls had filed complaints about him as well. He followed one poor girl to her dorm, apparently. I honestly do not know what happened to him. I never saw him again. Story 21. It's disconcerting when people give unsolicited opinions about your appearance. For instance, a guy once told me, "Yeah, you're a 9 out of 10, but you'd be 10 out of 10 if you didn't have crooked teeth." Did I ask for his opinion? No, and I wasn't even trying to approach him romantically. Another issue is the lack of boundaries. Some people don't stop texting after being left unread multiple times or they get physically too close. It's important to respect personal space and signals that someone isn't interested in continuing the conversation. When someone is talking to me and keeps giving romantic compliments or comments, I'll be nice and civil because it's nice and can make my day. However, if they persist knowing I'm in a relationship or not interested in them, and they're going too far, despite my obvious discomfort, that's not okay. Compliments or not, if someone doesn't want to interact with you, they're allowed to. Nobody owes you anything. If they're mean, that's on them. Hating anyone else for no reason or just because they annoy you is unacceptable. These groups are simply existing, and making their already difficult lives harder is unnecessary and harmful. Any incel-like behavior is also problematic. It's important to treat everyone with respect and to be mindful of their comfort and boundaries. Perhaps my standards are too high, but I'm not a very social or outgoing person, so I get easily intimidated when approached. I just want to be treated with respect, and I try my hardest to make it clear when I'm uncomfortable. Many other women share similar experiences and feelings. Story 22. I don't care how late I am to this thread, but I had a very scary interaction summer before last. In the summer, food trucks come to a large park near where I work, and we will have planned outings for people in our office to go eat together. I was running behind and didn't leave with a group. For my job, I have to wear business casual and in an attempt to cover a large tattoo, high-neck shirts, sensible heels, etc. Not looking sexy. So I'm walking from my office to the park and a guy approaches me. I think he initially asked for a smoke, but I had only brought one and was smoking it. He then starts asking me where I'm going. Lunch with friends. Can you come with? No, I'm married. Can you buy me lunch? No, thank you. How he has his own money, it'll just be his friends, he wants to get to know me. Like, just hammered on me for 2 blocks wanting hugs and trying to invite himself to lunch. I'm starting to panic, looking for someone I know. I see no one. It's broad daylight and I'm scared. I finally just ran from him and he was smart enough not to follow. Story 23. I've only met a few guys that really creeped me out, and they were both very similar. Ultra-religious and absolutely no effect in any situation, ever. Whether something great or something objectively horrible was occurring, they acted in the exact same way. Both men could be really antsy, almost like someone with anxiety might behave, but they didn't believe in getting upset for religious reasons. Never uncomfortable, but could make everyone around them wildly uncomfortable. Both of them seemed to be able to turn on a personality when needed for certain important social interactions, but they were otherwise empty. No discernible interest outside of religion, no preferences in decor in their home or workspace, and little to no friends. Not being able to get a read on someone and feeling like they could have ended someone and come to work perfectly normal creeped me all the way out. Like lizards who made really realistic human suits. Story 24. I got matched with this guy on Tinder and talked to him for about a month. He could not stop talking about his male friend. Every conversation we had, even intimate topics, would somehow end up being about his friend and his bromance with him. I low-key asked him if there was any intimacy between them, and he just laughed and said that he only loved him as a friend. Things got creepier when he told me that he's taking him to Sandals Resort in Jamaica and that they're going to fake being a couple. This raised a very huge red flag for me, and also there was no chemistry between us, so I decided to slowly tell him that I don't think things are going to work out between us. After telling him that I wanted to stop seeing each other, he got aggressive and told me that it'll be my loss and kept sending me mirror selfies and telling me that he's giving me my last chance for being with him. He kept contacting me until I blocked him from everywhere. Pretty creepy. Story 25. Back when I was online dating, I was talking to a guy who claimed to be wealthy. His picture was of a very good-looking man who was just my type and from a foreign country. Sexy accent. So the comments below about ugly or poor are BS from the start. We hadn't been chatting via text for more than 2 days when he started slipping comments into our conversations about supporting me financially, moving in with him, how I didn't need to work anymore, and how he'd take care of me. He said I was perfect for him, and he was sure I was the one. Immediate, massive red flags. I don't need someone to take care of me. I can do that. Thanks. It was like offering someone money in exchange for a relationship, but without the honesty of saying it. Without even meeting me, he jumped from, "Hi, I'm John," to "Move in with me." Jumping too quickly into commitment, making declarations of love or affection immediately without getting to know the person at all. Remember, we hadn't even met in person. This made me wonder if he was trying to lure me in with too good to be true promises to do something horrible to me. I had no reason to doubt his picture, claims of career, and financial situation, except that someone that's supposedly successful and good-looking probably wouldn't need to troll for women online and jump from "Hi" to "I love you, come live with me right now" as the opening to a relationship. The whole thing was beyond creepy and weird. I blocked him from contacting me again. I wonder if he went to someone else and sincerely pray he didn't. I'd hate to think of what might have happened to her. Story 27. Approaching me without making eye contact first. If I'm staring at my phone or talking to a friend, that's a clear sign that I'm not open to a random conversation with you. If we make eye contact first and then you approach, at least I'm aware that you are there and I'm prepared, and arguably open for an interaction. Even still, it's best not to approach unless we've made eye contact and I've smiled or done something else to indicate I'm open to talking to you. The worst is when a guy approaches from behind or outside of my line of sight. It feels so predatory to have a guy come from behind. It always makes me feel automatically on guard. You're not going to get a positive response from me this way. Even worse is when they can't read the body language or verbal signs. Short, no response. Just because I'm responding to you doesn't mean I want to interact with you. It means I'm afraid that you will do something extreme if I don't pacify you with my attention. I'm scared and uncomfortable. Please leave me alone. Story 28. Guys who approach you while you're at work can be incredibly uncomfortable. I've had numerous men, who are 3 times my age, blatantly hit on me while I'm ringing them up at my retail job. Like, dude, you're old enough to be my father or grandfather. I don't want your advances. For example, I got my first job at Dunkin' Donuts. I was working the evening shift, so I was the only one behind the counter. My coworker was in the back. An older man came in and started asking me a bunch of personal questions like, what's my last name and where I live. He told me that I reminded him of one of his students because I have beautiful blue eyes just like her and asked if we were related. Then he asked if I was French. I didn't give him any of my information. I was quite scared. He then proceeded to tell me that he was in a band and gave me a CD. I left that CD in the Dunkin' Donuts because I was quite freaked out by this and I didn't want the CD. Then I got a different job in retail at a clothing store. And last summer, I was working a late shift. It was 9 p.m. and some old man came in. He was chatting with me and it took a long time at the register because he kept moving very slowly. He handed me each item of clothing one at a time and would touch my hands every time. He was also asking me personal questions about where I live and what my full name is. He also asked me if I was from the Midwest because I seemed so pure and innocent. I'm not from the Midwest, but I didn't tell him that. About halfway through the transaction, one of my coworkers noticed what was going on and came up to the register and started folding clothes right next to me. like not even 3 feet away. I was very grateful for that. Story 29. When he has a chat practically with himself, and after a few polite and basic exchange of info, he keeps pointing out how you wrote in your profile you're looking for the serious type and that he's super serious, that you two should definitely date, etc. Then a few days later, he texts you again, angrily, asking if you wanted a serious guy, why the hell didn't you bother texting back afterwards? And he reassures you he's super serious. It keeps going like that for another 10 minutes. The next day, I receive yet another series of texts in which he, angrily again, keeps going on about how bad of a person I am for not answering, that I'm like all the other girls, that I'm an awful person. And he ends the conversation with literally this line: "Okay, my name, would you please give me your number now?" I laughed at that for half an hour, bothered responding that no, I wasn't going to do that. Not because I'm an awful person, but because he proved to me he was straight up the obsessive-aggressive type instead, and that he probably should work on that before looking for girlfriends. I had a good laugh about it, but it scares me to think how there are guys and girls like that out there. They just assume that you own them because they're being nice to you. I always get the feeling these types of people are the ones who could actually end up ending their girlfriends for very stupid reasons or assumptions they made up in their heads. Eventually. So yeah, pretty creepy. Story 30. When someone randomly assumes you know them just because they know you, it can be quite awkward. I had a situation when I was younger where I went to the dentist with my mom. Like 4 people I recognized from school were there. I leaned over to my mom and whispered, "Mom, there are a bunch of people from school here." Because, small world. But I was being quiet so as to not be rude to the other people waiting. All of a sudden, this kid sitting right behind us, the seats we were sitting in were back to back, turns around and loudly proclaims himself to be one of the people I recognize, even though I had no clue who he was. He then just interjected himself into our conversation. Sure enough, I started noticing him around school. And I guess since he got his confirmation that I knew who he was, I literally had to sneak a peek at a piece of homework in his hand to learn his name, though he knew mine. He started being very, very forward, hugging me and stuff. Eventually, he asked me out and I awkwardly agreed, but a week later, he declared his love for me. And I broke it off because he clearly likes me a lot more than I liked him. I ran out of the room crying. He had started skipping his classes to stalk outside mine. Then I was the bad guy for making such a nice guy upset. He continued following me still, but the counselors wouldn't do anything because we were 2 weeks from the end of the school year. Luckily, he got the message when he walked up behind me in the halls and I booked it across the school. Story 31. I used to work the night shift, alone, at a local convenience store in the town I used to live in. Keep in mind this was a small town, so about 80% of the customers would get in the middle of the night or early morning were regulars. There were 2 male customers, both regulars in particular, that would do very distinct things to make me feel uncomfortable or creeped out. The first guy, as soon as he came in, would always give me a big, unnerving smile and stare at me incessantly, like super intense, nearly no blinking type staring. It was impossible to escape and always made me feel very awkward. The second guy was very loud and obnoxious. He was infamous among all of us who worked there, including the manager, and every single young female worker would ask us to either give him his product for free or go on a date with him. And once you were visibly uncomfortable, he would laugh and give the same BS excuse about how he was just joking and that his wife would end him but he had to try. Kind of contradictory. So I guess those boil down to unnecessary and intense staring and continuing to obnoxiously flirt in a way that, literally from experience, makes people feel uncomfortable. And the most basic thing behind both of those, I think, is this. If you notice the signs and still consciously choose to keep pushing, it comes across as a blatant disregard for one's boundaries. The creepiness comes from the fear of the potential danger that sort of behavior might lead to. Story 32. I worked at a tobacco or convenience store as a cashier to support myself during college. Because I worked alone, my friends would often come in and stay with me because I was being pestered so frequently. The shop was located near my campus and across the street from a bar, which meant I had to deal with many, many unsettling comments and situations over the years. It wasn't just college students either. There were high school kids with fake IDs, cigar-puffing grandpas, town drinkers, and every person in between. I always felt as though I couldn't report any of these incidents because my manager often bragged to another male employee about hiring me because of my appearance, saying that I was great for business. There were also so many problem customers that I wouldn't even know where to begin if I did try to take action. And because I didn't have a car, it was the highest paying job within walking distance and I really needed the money. As far as creepiness goes, it wasn't just the comments about my attractiveness. The nauseatingly persistent romantic pursuits, the lingering stares, the cell phone numbers I never asked for, or the inquiries about how close my apartment was. All of that became easy enough to deal with after some time passed. For me, it was simply the feeling of being treated like I was just another item in the store that could be acquired. What made it worse was that many of these men only acted this way when I was alone, meaning that they were capable of showing restraint. They just chose not to when they knew I was the only one in the store. Somehow, the presence of another person was enough to make most of them act more respectfully towards me, but my existence alone rarely merited such decorum. It's been over a year since I quit, and clocking out for the last time was one of the most liberating moments I've ever experienced in my life. But it pains me to know that so many women go through this, especially while working customer service. My advice to bystanders is to always look for signs of distress or discomfort, especially when a worker is in an establishment alone. Sometimes your presence or intervention can be enough to prevent a bad situation from escalating.
Girls. What is something that guys may consider nice but is actually creepy to you? Physically picking me up without notice. I'm a 29-year-old woman and it's such freaking BS. People automatically assume that they're entitled to pick me up without my consent and then try to justify it by saying that I look younger than they expect. Like that somehow makes it okay. I don't give a damn if you think it's cute or you think I'm fit and acrobatic or you want to show off how strong and manly you look with me in your arms. Or if you're excited. I did not ask to be lifted off the ground. The problem with this is that it automatically removes a woman from her agency. You're forcing her to accommodate the hug or embrace you. Petite women aren't children. Don't just pick a woman up and bring her to your level because it feels right or less awkward for you. The other problem is that people like this don't consider if a woman has endured a back injury. Every time someone picks me up, it's often unsupported fully. I'm not just going to straddle or wrap my legs around an acquaintance to counter the act of being lifted. So I'm struggling to use my core as you crush me against your chest so I don't injure my lower back as you swing me to and fro like some character out of a Disney film. Don't get me wrong. If I know you and the act is consensual, lifted hugs can be meaningful and a lot of fun. But please, gentlemen, get to know a woman and her physical health and preferences before you just scoop her up. I guess some people just don't think about the impact their actions might have on others. Story 2. A guy I work with who is close to my dad's age constantly talks about how I look like his wife did when she was younger, but that she's not pretty like me anymore. I find it extremely odd. Also, I'm a very non-touchy person with people I work with, especially men. The same guy forced me into a hug. He's at least twice my size and wouldn't let me go because insert other female coworker's name here lets me hug her, so why don't you? He later called me a witch because I told him to let me go. For clarity, I have spoken to a general manager about these incidents. Many people witnessed the hugging and didn't say anything despite my angry attempts to get him to stop. My company is extremely small, so the person we have handling HR isn't technically an HR professional, as they weren't trained nor have any experience with HR. Both are aware. To my knowledge, there is no documentation of the situation and nothing was said to him. Again, to my knowledge. However, the hugging event was the last time he touched me, thank God. If it happens again, I will definitely file a larger complaint with the labor board if I have to. Although my memory on dates is a bit fuzzy. That may be an issue. Right now, I basically avoid this person at all costs and only speak to him when it's absolutely necessary. Story 3. I'm a male who used to work at a pizza place that did a lot of deliveries. We were the only place that delivered in the suburb. Almost everyone there was working because it was a fun, low-stress place to make easy extra money with fun people. We had a girl who was very attractive, and creeps would request her to deliver the pizza, promising big tips. She was creeped out by this, so didn't go with those, so a male would go and get witched at and relieve no tip. If this happened again, they were cut off. Well, eventually, the owner got too old to run it and sold the place. The new owner's biggest reason for buying it was because he was on the banned list. Well, he called a meeting of all the employees and said to the attractive girl, "Now you have to deliver my pizza." She said, "No, I don't," and walked out, followed by most of the staff. So this new owner bought a very successful monopoly and lost the entire staff on the first day. The pizza quality plummets, and he sells it for half of what he bought it to an old employee who quit. I just get so happy knowing this schmuck lost so much money because of his words. Many are taking the story as he bought the place to get her. The pizza place was pretty profitable, being the only deliverable food in a very rich suburb or exurb. So it wasn't just for the girl and food. But the guy was very slimy, thinking that his money should make every woman want him. I admit that I trumped up the story for the comment karma and helping give some of you justice. And for that, I'm not sorry. Story 4. Not exactly creepy, but a lot of guys are convinced that telling a girl that she doesn't need all that makeup is one of the nicest things you can say to a girl. Don't get me wrong, it can be super nice for girls who genuinely think they need makeup or won't go out in public without it. But if a girl is wearing really dark makeup or makeup that is obviously not very natural, we're probably not wearing it because we feel self-conscious without it.
Makeup is an artistic outlet for a lot of women, and personally, it's the one thing I do in the mornings a few days a week that is really fun for me. And it's frustrating when guys can't see it as anything more than a girl trying to look prettier. Believe me, I know I probably look more conventionally attractive without bright purple eyeshadow, but I don't really care because it's so fun to put on. Hopefully, more people will start to see makeup as a form of art and appreciate it for the creativity it is. Story 5. I'm a guy, but I had a creepy experience once as an older dude hit on my girlfriend at the time. We were at a friend's house, and he had a bunch of state troopers as friends. One of the troopers was a total schmuck. At first, he just casually mentioned that I had done good, and if he were in my shoes, he would feel pretty fortunate. Well, that turned into him slobbering all over himself, intoxicated, laughing like a madman, and every sentence he said got creepier and creepier, like that jelly bean from Rick and Morty. Man, if I was in your shoes. He was openly getting more aggressive as the night went on. He kept saying partial sentences, then biting his lip as if to keep himself from saying something. The things I would do. Honest to God, if you're anything like that, man, I want you to know you disgust me to my core, and you ruined the game for everyone else. I ended up calling him out for being a sicko and left early. Story 6. Being a sexist. Let me explain. In almost all of these examples, there are responses saying, but how is that creepy? But that's just a compliment, etc. If you truly in your heart believe women are equal to men in every way, and then proceed with these actions, they're usually perceived as nice if you don't believe that they're creepy. We can tell. It's usually to do with so much context and past action that it's difficult to explain in a Reddit post. Watching how you act with men versus how you act with women. Repetition, tone. If my current boyfriend came to tie in my lug nuts, it'd be nice, because I know he thinks I'm completely capable, but I also know he has better tools than I. If I was dating his brother and he did it, somehow who knows nothing about cars, I would know he was doing it because he thinks girls are incapable, and it would be creepy. I have 2 managers at work. One can give compliments and it's nice because I know he totally respects me. The other does and it's creepy because he thinks men are superior and or women should bend to his will but don't. To clarify, manager number 2 does not think he's a sexist. He thinks he loves women. But we can tell he thinks of us as another species. If men are reading this and wondering why they're coming off as creepy, you need to stop and reevaluate. It may not be that you think women are inferior. It may be that you think they're superior and you are intimidated. Either way is wrong. Women are like men who whiz sitting down. Talk to a woman you don't know well the same way you talk to a man you don't know well. Don't assume who they are or what they like. Just talk to them like you would a man who you're trying to be nice to. Story 7. I went on a first date with a sweet guy back when I was 18 who did what I considered to be 2 creepy things, but I honestly don't think he had bad intentions. First offense. We leave the lounge you have a few drinks at, getting back into the car as people do. I'm under the impression the date is just about over. He starts driving and says, I want to take you out to watch the stars. Cute, right? Except I have no prior friendship or any sort of relationship with him, and he wants to drive out to some remote hill in our city to do this. So immediately I'm scared, because this guy is still a stranger and who knows what could happen if we were somewhere kind of hidden from the rest of the world. So immediately I say I need to go back home, and after trying to convince me otherwise, he eventually gives up and agrees we should call it a night. Second offense. Now that it's been established, he's just driving me home. I'm starting to feel a bit more at ease again, until we start getting closer to my street. He starts driving really slow. I think it's odd, but I don't put much thought into it until he says, do you know why I'm driving so slow? I say I don't, and he says, because I'm having a really good time and I like you and I don't want this date to end. Again, this could be taken as cute, but I start to get kind of panicky again. Panicky as in, is he going to stop driving completely and trap me in the car? So I pretty much run out of the car when he does, in fact, stop in front of my house. He follows me out for a kiss goodnight, which I give him because I can't think of another way to get him to immediately stop bugging me and I rush into my house. The only time I talked to him after this date was to tell him I wasn't interested, which he took well and even thanked me for being honest, which was good. I hope he doesn't do the same sorts of things in dates now, or that he at least tries to think about how he may actually be presenting himself. Story 8. My old coworker would make remarks about female coworkers and ask for hugs. When denied, he'd whisper how much of a witch they were for not hugging him after. He made a lot of explicit jokes after he found out me and another coworker had been dating and staying together, which was really uncomfortable. He then went on to tell a new girl she looked like a depressed girl and would brag about how hot his little brother's girlfriend was and say stuff like, if I was his age, would jokingly ask her lesbian coworker to invite him. Being bi, me and her talked a lot and she was uncomfortable closing with him, so I swapped shifts every time she had to close or would ask to stay and close instead of her. Nobody liked working with him. Dude gave off huge creeper vibes. and a few of us outright told him he was weird as hell. Normally, I feel bad when I explode on someone, but in his case, it didn't help things. He became the guy we warned all the new girls about, the one that management couldn't really fire because he, to quote my manager, seemed like a sketchy guy that would sue us for firing him without a real reason. Story 9. The absolute worst is a guy who won't stay out of your personal space, even though you step away every time and indicate that you're not interested. My body belongs to me. You're not entitled to touch it in any way for your own gratification, unless you're sure it's welcome. Not sure? Ask. My company has a client who creeps on me. He goes in for a hug, even though we don't really know each other, then holds it a little too long, leans way over into my space at business dinners. You may say that he might just have different boundaries or be really clueless, but I've noticed that he somehow manages not to do this to women who have some authority over him. He only does this stuff to those of us who can't really complain. Magically. I've not said anything except to my direct boss, but if I ever get the chance to take him down, I will do it savagely. If not, I'll just have to satisfy myself with hoping I outlive him and can whiz on his grave. Story 10. Having male customers or vendors pester me. On several occasions, some grimy old man has taken it upon himself to physically invade my space and pester me. There's this old fellow who hands out poems. As a new worker, I thought he was harmless. One day he asked for a hug, so I said sure, why the hell not? I consented to the hug because, I don't know, I'm a freaking idiot. I forgot how weird the public could be. What I did not consent to was him making a noise. After that, he would constantly ask for hugs and follow me around the store. Eventually, I had to report him because I'm trying to work, not dodge this walking cologne bottle. My boss thankfully understood, and ever since, the old guy only follows me sometimes and says hi if I accidentally make eye contact. There is a chip vendor who likes to wolf whistle at me and call me sweetie. I would be polite, but now I also dodge him because if I'm in an aisle stocking shelves, he'll come up behind me and stroke my hair. The one time he decided to brush his hand against my back, I haven't reported him yet, but I'm just waiting until he tries in front of a camera. Long story short, guys, if a woman obviously has not shown any romantic interest in you, smiling doesn't count. Please do not touch them. Story 11. I have a coworker who is a hugger. Now, I'm usually pretty okay with occasional physical contact, but it got to be an every 5 minutes kind of thing for this guy. So much so that it became nearly oppressive. I never said anything because everyone was drinking the Kool-Aid in this guy and thought he was the best thing since Nutella. I was a little distracted one day in addition to becoming increasingly frustrated over the forced hugs, so I didn't really engage him in a good enough hug. He actually got offended and called me out on it. That's when I was officially done. Seriously, dude. You're going to dictate how I hug you? Nope. The next time he came up on me, I visibly flinched away and had the, I may not have much of a personal space bubble, but I've got more of one than you do, comment. As time has gone on, I've caught the guy negging and making inappropriate jokes in front of clients. I have a pair of faded pants I wear to work. Totally work appropriate as we do a lot of physical labor and often our clothes are bleached with cleaning supplies. He comments in front of clients, "Look at those faded pants. Seriously, all your pants are faded. I love it." My response to him was, well, if you work hard enough, maybe you'll be around long enough to have pants just like them. He does things to put himself in a positive light by calling negative attention to female staff, but then saying, but she tries so hard, or bless her heart. He also feels the need to give every female we work with kudos for doing such a good job, almost as if he were our boss. He does it in front of our clients, too. You're lucky to be working with her. She's one of the best. It totally strips the agency of the females in the workplace, and it puts us in a position where it looks like we need his approval for what we do. Never mind the fact that he's the new man on the totem pole and we've all got at least a few years' experience while he's just entering this career field. We work with other guys and they manage to be good coworkers without acting like their praise is the sole reason we wake in the mornings. Ultimately, this guy tries to force his way into our lives and make friends with us by being awesome. Unfortunately, he does so in ways that would only work on women with low self-confidence or other issues. It's gone a lot better as a lot of the coworkers have realized that he's less Nutella and more off-brand peanut butter. Tolerable in the right situation, but mostly to be avoided. Story 12. When a guy tells you what a nice guy he is and how he's been wronged by every girl he's dated because they're all psychos, but you're different, and though he's hurt, he's totally willing to take a chance on you because he's just that nice a guy. No, I'm sorry. If all your exes are psychos, you're either the psycho or you're attracted to psychos, which means you think I'm a psycho or you're going to start treating me like I'm a psycho if we start dating by projecting weird BS on me. No thank you. Talking crap about your ex is not a turn on. It does not make you sound like a nice guy either. And telling me you like me because I'm not psycho is, first of all, setting the bar so ridiculously low I can't even. but it's also an affront to basically all women to assume that the ones who aren't psycho are a minority. I guess by those standards, I should assume most men are psychos. Come on, get real. If these are words you have said, you're not a nice guy, and your exes were likely just sick of your crap. Story 13. When a guy explains to me how much he respects women and how much he respects me and how respectful he is, I learned the hard way he just wants one thing. If you have to elaborate how much you respect a female, you're probably full of crap. Found that out the hard way. I work construction. I always wore baggy clothes, but on the last day of a job, I wear nice clothes so I can go out and do something on the way home and celebrate. I never have to see those guys again, so I don't have to endure their comments the next day. Just that day. I'm actually quite insecure about dressing in form-fitting clothes, but I'm trying to grow tougher skin. I still dress modestly, though. I became an insecure witch that day. Some guys fantasized the whole time I was there, but now they got a clear picture. I got a lot of gross looks that day, but I walked with head held high. One guy whistled and catcalled on my way out, and I kept walking, flipping him the finger, which offended him. I'm just trying to be nice. So I tell him, I knew I looked good before that comment, and I didn't ask. Pervert. If you need sassy comebacks for males being gross, drop me a line. Story 14. Do not call us by pet names if we don't actually know you. Particularly for coworkers, there's a difference between pet names and nicknames. Pet names are the kind of names you only use for people you know intimately. Afternoon, Sassy McSasserson is an okay use of a nickname with a coworker, so long as said coworker has not expressed any discomfort with it. Good afternoon, beautiful is not an appropriate way to greet a coworker, particularly one you have only been working with for a short time and don't actually see in person, just interact with over a chat program between offices. This is a situation I'm currently dealing with at my own job. Words like gorgeous and beautiful take on all kinds of new layers of meaning when used as a way of addressing a woman. They carry very heavy implications of levels of intimacy that many women do not feel comfortable granting to anyone other than a current lover. Please don't use them for women you are not already extremely close to. Story 15. A friend of a friend gave me a ride home from the bar one night. He dropped a few other people off too. Dropped me off and I said thanks. Valentine's Day was a few days later. I come home from work, a little later at night, maybe 9-ish, and there's red spray paint hearts all over my driveway. I go inside and there's flowers on the table. I ask my roommate who it is from, thinking it was for her. She says it's for you from Eric. I'm thinking, who the hell is Eric? And she says she thought I knew about it because the flowers were inside when she got home. Then, the icing on the cake is later, a friend that knew shows me a video posted on social media of Eric spray painting the driveway and giggling and running off into the night. And he says, I didn't realize you knew Eric. I say I don't. Then I realize Eric is the guy that drove us all home from the car. Now, had I known Eric and had he actually been invited to my residence in the past, this may have been sweet. But the fact that he remembered where I lived and thought that it was okay to paint my driveway and go inside my house when I had only met him once before, and I was intoxicated, mind you, really creeped me out. It felt stalkerish and violating. Needless to say, I was not his Valentine. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 16. Making little to no attempt at communication or getting to know a girl, then performing a grand gesture to express your feelings. To explain, I worked with a guy who barely spoke to me, but who rode with a coworker one night to drop me off. A few days later, I went out to my car to find a mixed CD, candy, gift cards, and flowers. He had been listening in on my conversations with other people and curating information, yet never attempted to speak to me directly. It freaked me out because he had also obviously memorized where I lived, and it made things at work extremely uncomfortable. I get shyness. I am a shy person as well, but you can't just force someone into that situation. And it's also weird to construct this idea of a person and get upset when they don't actually conform to it. Some of my coworkers were like, I would love for a guy to do that for me. And I was like, yeah, one that had at least attempted to get to know me as a person through a conversation and not lurking around eavesdropping. Story 17. Dude messaged me on social media. I replied. We chatted back and forth for a bit. He then proceeded to pester me about wanting to show me his Johnson. Even though I repeatedly said I wasn't interested. He was nice enough to talk to about other things, so I didn't immediately give up on the convo. He wouldn't stop asking to show me his Johnson, so I finally said, if it will show you up, fine. Mistake number 1. From then on, anytime he messaged me, it would start out just normal chat and then bam, Johnson pic. Normally, I wouldn't acknowledge it and try to continue a normal conversation. Mistake number 2. Eventually, I just responded, can you not? And I haven't heard from him since. Story 18. I'm very independent and don't like it when guys just help me without asking. If I'm doing something and I put my mind to it that I can do this by myself, and if I needed help, I would ask for it. If you just come up and take the task away from me, then I feel like a poor, helpless woman who couldn't possibly do this on her own. Like, for example, I got this new bed frame and bought it for myself and was super excited to build it. It was my first project. I was 18. I was dating this guy at the time who made me feel so weak and like I need a man to do this. He told me many times to let him do it and go make dinner while I finish for you. Like a woman should? Anyways, I think he thought it was a nice gesture, and I'm sure he likes the feeling that he needs to take care of his woman and that he's the man. But it angers me off, and every guy since then needs to let me do what I want to do unless I ask for help or I accept your offer to help, or it's a cute project that was originally planned for the both of us. Story 19. I work reception in my work. My desk is literally the first thing you see when you look through the glass front doors. There's this very creepy guy who works a couple of units down from my office. Every day he speeds by in his red car and stops right in front of the doors to stare at me. It doesn't matter if I'm looking at him or not, he just stares at me every single time he drives by. He's a smoker too, so on his smoke breaks, he makes a point to walk by the office and stare at me some more. It's gotten to the point where my coworkers see him coming and know it's about to go down. Unfortunately, they all find it amusing. There have been times where I'd be walking from my car to the building, or vice versa, and he's in the parking lot staring and smiling at me. When he sees that I notice him, he smiles even bigger and waves as if we know each other, but we have never said a word to each other. I never encourages attention, but that doesn't seem to stop him. I can't express how creepy this dude is. I shouldn't have to feel like I'm on display for this guy, or any guy for that matter. Story 20. Not a chick, but I've had a genuinely creepy experience with an older woman pursuing me before. I was at a bar with a buddy and this older chick, mid-40s at least, I was 24 to 25 at the time, approaches me and tries to strike up a conversation. I'm not a rude person, so I talk to her for a bit, but once I can see she's interested, I try to let her down gently. Anyhow, my buddy kind of jokes with me about how she was certainly down and we went out to smoke a cig. So I'm outside having a smoke with my friend and I can sense something staring at me. I turn around and that lady's out there across the way from me, about 30 feet away, and she's staring at me intensely. I quickly look away so as not to give her the wrong idea as she approaches me. She starts telling me she was my teacher from the 5th grade, which is not possible. I lived in SC then, I was an AK at the time. Then she tells me under her breath, "Kiss me." I say, "Excuse me?" She repeats herself. Then she proceeds to totally get in my personal space, so I back up, then she closes the gap. She did this until she literally backed me into a corner, at which point I grabbed her by the shoulders to move her, grabbed my friend, and told him we were leaving. She followed us all the way out. Once we were out of the bar, we ran. I almost became a statistic that night. I'm pretty sure that chick would have spiked me if I let her buy me a drink. Best case scenario, I would have become a lampshade or a purse. I was never a creepy guy with girls. At least, I don't think so. I can take a hint, but I've never been so relentlessly pursued before. I was genuinely creeped out. I learned that night what most girls go through on a daily basis, and I vowed to never be that guy. Story 21. When you have a girlfriend and I know her, but you continually text me and send multiple texts, "Hey, hi, what's up? Hey, hi," and I don't answer, first of all, if you have a girlfriend, wife, significant other, get the hell away from me. I respect other females and do not want to be the reason for your relationship's demise or even remotely involved. Secondly, if I have to send those "so where is your girlfriend" text, that should be your immediate signal to shut up and stop texting me. Thirdly, if I have to call you out on how bad your girlfriend would feel if she found out that you were texting me and asking me to come over and crap, that should again be another sign to back the hell off. If you didn't want to be in a relationship with her, then get out of it. Don't come to me when things go wrong because you think I'm a great listener. I have no attraction to guys who are in current relationships. Fourthly, if you guys are on a break, don't come looking for me to sleep with you while you're on this break. Fifthly, don't say you're not like every other schmucks in the world when clearly all 4 of those signs show what a complete schmuck you are. Story 22. One I've always found uncomfortable, not exactly creeped out, but a similar feeling that triggers a similar response, is when it's clear you like me and I'm not interested, but you can't or won't give me a clear enough come on for me to turn down. The guy I worked with told me, "Did anyone ever tell you you're beautiful?" Every day, sometimes 2 to 3 times, and insisted on shaking my hand afterwards every time. There was no way for me to just say, "I'm not interested in dating you," without coming across as completely rude and overreacting to a simple compliment, but it was really obvious where he wanted things to go. A friend who had to point out anyway we were remotely compatible if you like the same TV show. He decided to show up an hour early to a party I was throwing for a mutual friend and help me get ready, then made a point of telling me how great it was he could cook and I was good at plating. Many other things like that. No one thing was creepy, but all the things put together along with feeling trapped in the situation was, hopefully you'll get the message eventually. Sometimes people are a bit oblivious to social cues. Story 23. A guy told me that he had been liking me for a while. I was hesitant, but I wanted to give him a chance. Due to distance and my dating history, I told him that I prefer that we wait and get to know each other before officially entering a relationship. Both agreed in those terms. After that conversation, he always found a way to compliment me, especially when it was irrelevant. I wanted to have actual conversations with him, not have someone continually complimenting me with weird remarks. Example, the Ravens are my favorite team. What did you think of the recent game? You will look hot in a football jersey. Okay, thanks. So what do you think of the recent games? I can't get over the image of you wearing a football jersey in my head. I get it. He's trying to be nice, but that comes off as creepy and an attempt at brown-nosing. If I tell you intricate details about my life, especially when we agreed to get to know each other more, it's because I liked how it was between us before you decided to continually derail the conversation by making me feel as if I'm being objectified. Story 24. Just the consideration that women want nice to begin with. I'm of the opinion that nice isn't all it's cracked up to be. Nice is knowing how to behave in public and just doing it because you know you're supposed to behave that way or there will be consequences. Nice is asking how people are doing when you run into them but not really caring, just doing it because it's considered polite. Nice can also be insidious. It's knowing what society expects out of you and doing it, thinking you deserve something for behaving right, claiming to be a nice guy while continually pursuing a woman who is trying to politely decline and getting physically mad about it. What women want isn't nice. Women want kind. Kind is doing something because you care for another person, not because you have an agenda. Kind is accepting when a woman isn't interested and moving on. Kind is a choice to put others first. Kind is behaving correctly in public just because you know it's the right thing to do. There's a huge difference between nice versus kind. Every self-proclaimed nice guy hasn't been nice. In my personal experience, they're pushy, manipulative, and easily play the victim. It all wants something from a woman. Intimacy or to behave as a trophy for their niceness or catering to them when they're lazy just because they're nice. So to answer your question, something that guys consider nice but is creepy is the self-identification of nice, and in no way valuing being kind. Story 25. I'm not great at explaining things, but if you went on an online date and she turned out to be a supermodel and you said, "You look hot," to her, it would be a turn-off. It's like you're fawning over her. It's like you saying it's a surprising thing to you that you're with a hot girl. She wants a guy that appears to attract attractive women. And if he does, then he wouldn't be the kind of guy to say you look hot. She wants a guy that impresses her, not the other way around. She wants to feel as though she's batting above her grade, not that he's batting above his. In addition, it's a turn-off because it's like he's given her an attractive rating out loud, like this rating is so important to him. He just had to tell the girl shortly after meeting her, and since it's so important to him, if she wasn't attractive, her personality would count for nothing. When the relationship has made it past the first couple of dates, and you can start to compliment her looks. Story 26. I'm a dude, but I have a story that seems relevant. Back when I was about 20, I had pretty long hair. I was also kind of slender, and I would always sport a beard. I would often go for walks at night through my town, introspectively inspecting. Well, one night I was sitting on a bench, looking out over a river that ran partially under the town, with my back to a big parking lot. A group of guys gets out of a bar, and I can hear them shooting the crap. Suddenly I hear, "Hey, shawty." I pause and hear, "Hey, shawty, you all right?" And I realize with my hair down, I must look like a female, and since I'm sitting and ruminating, this guy must feel the need to make sure I'm doing okay. Well, I hear the footsteps approaching, so I turn around to see what the deal was going to be. And in a flash, the whole crew shock pauses, and I hear, "Oh damn, it's a dude." They left, and now I have that ridiculous story. Another time I was walking on the sidewalk in a busy street, and I hear some generic catcall from behind. As the SUV passes, I turn with a smile and shout, "Hey," as friendly as I could muster. The caveman hanging out of the window shouts, "I'm gonna freaking end you." Story 27. Remembering you and showing that they remember after the first rejection. This one guy has been approaching me for years after forcing me into giving him a number by nagging so bad that I got an anxiety attack I knew would only end if he stopped nagging, by getting my number. I blocked him the moment he called, but he elected to twist this message. For the 2 years that followed, every time he encounters me, he starts talking to me and keeps talking while I'm ignoring him. You can tell by his smile and tone of voice that he thinks he's being charming. Or my next-door neighbor literally said it's part of his charm to get me to come over because he needs something real quick after I told him, "Fine, but if it's you hitting on me again, I don't have time for that crap. I'm at work here." When I arrived, he came towards me and thought this was cute. He crassly disrespected me by putting me at risk of missing a deadline by feigning a need for help and thought it was cute. See, this is why I tend to tell men rather bluntly to get off when they ask me what time it is, if I got a light, or what breed my dog is. It usually ends in being hit on. And it's creepy because it forces me to suspect every man addressing me for anything or wanting to get in my pants, which causes me to feel far from safe anywhere, ever. And of course, a meninist is going to screech, hashtag not all men, except too many men. So I'd be stupid to trust one after having been betrayed by 100. It's like offering you 10 dim sum dumplings, knowing 3 are poisoned. Are you going to eat any? Only if you're stupid. Trying to get food in the door through deception, pretending to have a legit innocent intention like asking the time, is not okay. It's creepy because you're hiding behind everyday issues that seem innocent and would be rude to ignore. Story 28. If I'm talking to you in voice chat or phone and it's the first time I'm meeting you, don't tell me my voice sounds really pretty. I don't need to hear that when you should be paying attention to the raid we're doing. I also don't need the telemarketer calling me back the day after, asking for the one with a pretty voice. And for those who think, oh, it's just a compliment because they want to be friends with you on the first one, it's inappropriate. It's creepy. I just met you. I'll never see you again after the raid. I don't understand the downvotes. The question is, what is creepy that guys consider nice? So if you're offended I'm finding this behavior creepy, maybe you should look at your behavior, not mine. Complimenting my voice in situations where it's inappropriate, creepy, not nice. In the experience I've had in leading raids and guild events, the people who got out of their way to compliment my voice are creeps. They cross boundaries later, and this is a warning sign that they either don't understand the context of our interaction or that they were ignoring it. Using my number you obtained from your workplace to call me is creepy, not nice. I shouldn't have to explain that one further. Story 29. I work part-time at a restaurant that's huge for delivery orders. The amount of guys who ask me out over the phone is extremely uncomfortable. I'm not flirting. I'm just being polite and trying to get your order. Guys will frequently say stuff like, I'm sorry, but you just have a sexy or pretty voice and I wanted to let you know. It's inappropriate and so unnecessary. I have to ask for their phone number so the delivery driver can call them and they'll say stuff like, only if I can get yours, or, you have my address. You should stop by after work. When do you get off? What the hell? You have no idea what I look like. It could be ugly as hell. My least favorite is when I ask, anything else I can help you with? And they reply, depends. Can you be delivered with a pizza? Whenever I get upset or don't respond well to these remarks, they always insist they're just trying to be nice. Story 30. Okay, guy here. I bake and cook, usually in amounts that will go bad before I get anywhere near finishing them. I have a number of women who dig in when I bring food to the office, which is usually every couple days. I have a coworker who just got slam dumped by her wife. I've been cooking food for her since before the trouble and have expressed zero interest. I like the friendship as it stands. I'd like to continue as is without seeming like I'm interested, because I'm not, but she's been opening up to me. I know crap about the marriage and her soon-to-be ex-wife that would make fodder for any person looking to move in that way. I do like her, but she's just not my type. Do I just go on as usual or bring in more chocolate-based items or what? I find staying in the friend zone here. Story 31. I used to work in retail a few years back and there was this frequent customer, an older male in his 50s or something. He used to come by most of the time while I was working there and he usually brought along his 5-year-old daughter. At first, he seemed alright. He was quite the chatty type and I didn't really mind. However, this guy gradually started to creep me out by telling me about his personal life. How his wife had passed away in childbirth and how hard it was for him to cook and clean and care for his daughter all by himself and stuff like that. I'm of Asian heritage, so he went on about how he found Asian women attractive and how nice they were to look at. The final straw, however, was when he told me that I should visit him sometime for a cup of coffee because apparently I knew where he lived. What the actual crap? Story 32. One of my first dates with my ex, we went to a movie theater that was attached to an outdoor mall. After we got out of the movie, it was sprinkling a bit outside. He offered me his jacket and I politely declined. I was already wearing a light jacket of my own and it wasn't that cold outside. He continued to insist I wore his jacket, like he thought he was saving me. He then proceeded to put his arm around me and went on this long rant about how thankful he was to have found me. We were in high school and this was probably a 3rd or 4th date, so we had almost no physical contact at that point. I ended up letting it go and dating him, but looking back, this was a huge red flag. He always had trouble taking no for an answer and would touch me without my permission.
Women. What's the most ridiculous thing you've had to do to get a guy to leave you alone? Called his grandmother. Was working at a diner in college after moving back to my hometown. I reconnect with a childhood friend. Have some polite conversation to maintain strict boundaries. Then he started showing up at my workplace. Every single day. And hit on me relentlessly. It got to the point where he would come in, buy a coffee or a soda, and then hang out for hours until my shift was over so he could follow me to my car. I wasn't allowed to kick him out of the diner because, hey, he's a paying customer. And I didn't think I could call the cops. I told him over and over and over again to leave me alone, but of course, nothing. At one point, he went to the diner while I was in class because, of course, he had memorized my schedule like a creepy little worm. and convinced my boss that he was my cousin and he had to get my phone number from her because our grandmother had an accident. That was the final straw. I went home, called my great-grandma and got her to pull his grandmother's phone number out of her address book. We had a great talk and she put the beat down on him, I guess, because I never saw him again after that. Damn, you know it's serious when grandma gets involved. Story 2. Okay, this is heavy and I've never told anyone because it makes me feel ridiculous. Anyway, I was at a party in college, out at this girl's house in the middle of nowhere and everyone was drinking. I had too much and needed fresh air and to grab my purse, so I went out and sat behind my car. This guy came out and sat next to me. I was in my English class, so I knew him, but we never really talked. Long story short, he hit on me. I rejected him, and he flipped out and forced me into my back seat to try to essay me. I was parked far enough away and in the dark so no one saw me, and all my intoxicated brain could think was that awful advice of whiz yourself and your attacker will be grossed out and leave. So I did. He was pretty grossed out, called me a sick witch, and left. I was too embarrassed to go back, so I just left. I drove home intoxicated and ashamed and crying. Luckily, I made it there safe. I took a shower and laughed at myself and cried. So yeah, probably the farthest I've gone to get rid of a guy. You know, it's a pretty common theme at Rufus Stories now to wish bad on bad people, so I hope that guy dies in a ditch. Story 3. After me and my ex broke up, he stalked me for 2 years. He would text me every so often, and I would be polite and ask him how he was. Then he would start to insult me when I didn't want to hang out with him. He cheated on me with another girl. After getting sick of his random text messages, I pretended that it wasn't my number. When he messaged me, I said, "Who is this?" He was like, "You know who it is." I replied with, "I just got this number and guys are constantly texting it for this chick named blank." My ex apologized and never heard from him again. Story 4. I went on a date to the beach with this guy and he invited me to his house. We ate some food and afterwards he kissed me. It made me a little uncomfortable, so I told him I had to go and that I had plans. He tried to convince me to stay and then said that I couldn't leave until I said I would be his girlfriend. Red flags are going off, and so I tried to keep the mood very light and started to gather my things while saying things like, "Oh, you really like me, hey? That's sweet." I went to leave and suddenly he's in front of me, grabbing my wrists and asking me to be his girlfriend. "Yeah, okay, bud. Whatever you say. I'm your girlfriend now." Unfortunately, he drove, so I told him my parents lived nearby. Not true. I would just walk there. I really didn't want him to know where I lived at this point. He follows me out into the street, offering me a ride, trying to hold my hand and walk me home, so I just bolt. I broke a flip-flop that day. I think he followed me for a while, but I got far enough ahead of him. It was about a 2-hour walk home, so I think eventually he just gave up. It started raining on the way. I remember being in my bathing suit and a dress, holding my shoes, running in the rain and laughing about how much I'd rather be there on the side of the road than in that guy's house for one more minute. We've been dating ever since. Just kidding. I broke up with him over text message when I got home. Apparently, it's not so easy to force someone to be your girlfriend. Who would have guessed? You know what? At this point, let's call it the Rufus list. And that guy just got on it. Story 5. They kept writing me texts saying crap like, "Baby, we were meant to be together. If you give me a chance, please, baby." Which is a schmuck code for, "I want to sleep with you. Why won't you let me?" So I acted like a crazy person and sent him the lyrics to Bob Dylan's Changing of the Guards and gave him an in-depth analysis on how these lyrics were assigned from some great cosmic being and made up BS about how I found connections in the lyrics to our new relationship. He totally screwed off after that and never sent me another message. It was fun though. I totally recommend everyone act crazy when dealing with crazy. Yeah, I second that motion. Just go on tangent about something they don't care about, and you are golden. Story 6. I finally had to sick my dad on someone. Ordinarily, I never would because the man has multiple black belts in martial arts. Competitively did martial arts and was crazy. I'd much rather go to the police than dad, but it didn't work. Started out as a friend of my boyfriend who was introduced to me. He wasn't really my friend, but was always around. He's never anything but polite, but would constantly reference how lucky my boyfriend was. Fast forward to our breakup. Suddenly, this guy was everywhere I went. Due to the breakup, we weren't even in the same circle. The grocery store, the park, everywhere. Small town, so I didn't really consider him stalkerish, especially as he was always so polite. He asked me out once. I said no, and he remained polite. Continued to follow me around. Made friends with all my friends, showed up anywhere he heard I'd be. He was older. I was 18, he was 24, so everyone always had him buy alcohol. No one complained about him, he was polite, really only spoke to me. It started to make me uncomfortable, but I didn't feel afraid. I was pretty sure I could kick his bum if it ever came to it. I'm my father's daughter. So one night, my two friends were complaining they'd bought 4 tickets to a concert and the other couple backed out. I said I'd go, and my stalker said he'd go. Oops. Oh well, I didn't want to be rude. Night of the concert, he never showed. It was a relief, honestly. We had fun, and I didn't really think about it much. A couple days later, I got a collect call from my county jail. It was this guy apologizing over and over for standing me up for a first date. He got arrested for possession. I assured him I wasn't upset and that it wasn't a date anyway. I got a couple more collect calls, but I just declined them. That's when the letters started. 2 or 3 a day. Some were begging for forgiveness. Some were explicit fantasies. Some were him writing like we were a couple, talking about our future kids and stuff. I took one more call to tell him to stop. They kept coming. And his dad, I was mad about him being in jail, keeping us apart. That's why I didn't write back or take his calls. I wrote to all my friends, telling them we were in love and asking them to get me to talk to him. When they told him to stop, he decided they were against him and trying to keep us apart. They were lying about him and confusing me. I called the jail and told them, so they restricted my number and didn't post letters to me from him. I was quiet for about a week. The letters in his handwriting started to appear in my car and mailbox, but not posted. The letters were telling me he got locked up in psych for trying to end it all and how I was an evil witch for doing this to him. Then the next would be begging for forgiveness. Then more fantasy stuff, but now it all featured him punishing me and teaching me how to be a good girl. I called the police. They caught someone putting the letters in my car. He'd hired some ex-con to deliver them. He'd mail to him, and that guy would deliver them. The guy had photos of me he was mailing back to my stalker. The guy didn't get charged, but they revoked his parole or something. It was quiet for another week. Then it all started again. Finally, I called my dad and told him the whole story and showed him a few of the letters. He turned a shade of purple and drove straight to the jail. I have no idea what he said or did, but I only got one more letter. That was a terrified apology begging me not to have him ended and he'd never contact me again. He never did. He never contacted any of my friends. What did your dad do? Story 7. I told the creeper I wasn't young. I was in college, looked like a high schooler, was 21 and a senior in college. Had at a bar or restaurant with some friends who were also college students, but not all 21 and able to drink legally. So we were there before the 8 p.m. 21 plus only cutoff. I was well known as a creeper magnet. You could drop me in a room with 100 guys, 99 perfectly reasonable human beings, and 1 creeper. And the creeper, and no one else, would instantly make a beeline for me. Creeper comes up, all, hey baby, and there I am drinking my soda like, please go away now. He sits down, makes himself comfortable, starts grilling me about what classes I like, what my plans are after graduation, the like. I'm giving one-word answers, looking for my friends to come rescue me from Creeper. Creeper asks if I know where I want to go to college. It occurs to me that he thinks I'm a high school student. Bonus Creeper points, the guy's in his 30s. Very slyly offers to buy me a drink. Nudge nudge, the special kind. I tell him if I want a drink, I'll buy my own, since I'm a senior in college. Little sonic boom as he vacated the stool. Yeah, I had a 30-something guy quit hitting on me because I wasn't young. If we all put our minds to it, catching kitty fiddlers is quite so easy, bro. Story 8. I walked into a grocery store one evening and had a feeling that someone was walking behind me. I turned around and saw a security guy following me. I didn't want him to keep staring at me, so I stopped to browse and made him go in front of me. He turned around and said, "You're really pretty." I was grossed out, so I pretended I didn't hear that and went to another aisle. And after a couple of minutes, surprise, surprise, he was behind me again. This time, I turned around, looked him in the eye, and said really loudly, "Can I help you? I feel like you're following me." He was caught off guard and mumbled something like, "Oh, no, I was just going this way." Then he left, and I didn't see him again. I talked to the store manager, who said that the man following me was not the store security, but was the plaza security. That just makes it even creepier. Story 9. Semi-recently, I was at a 24-hour restaurant by myself around 9 or 10 p.m. It was the kind of place that had counters with bar stools and free Wi-Fi, with a mix of locals and travelers. At one point, I felt watched, and I looked up to see a man staring and smiling at me. I thought maybe I had met him somewhere, so I gave a quick, polite smile and resubmerged myself in Reddit and my cheap meal. An hour and a half later, my phone battery was out and I paid up and left. Well, he was there, in the parking lot, waiting for me, smiling and waving from his truck and motioning for me to come over. I was shocked and froze mid-step for a couple seconds, but then nervously shook my head no and turned away to unlock my car door. I heard the truck engine start and saw the bright beams of headlights flash on behind me as I quickly hopped in my car, now fiddling with music playlists or air conditioning, and sped out of there. I thought I'd made it clear I wasn't interested, but
When I saw a truck speeding along just beside me, I switched lanes just in case. Even then, thinking I must be paranoid, there were plenty of truckers on the road that night. Probably wasn't him. The truck also switched lanes, all the while getting closer. I frantically swerved back to the other lane. So did the truck. But this time he was right behind me, flashing his brights. After that only caused me to speed up, he swerved up next to my car and drove level with me while grinning and jovially waving for me to pull over. He chased me all over the road through town until I turned at full speed without signaling or braking and skidding sideways down a side road. Darted into a random driveway, turned off the car and hid crying and shaking for half an hour until I was sure he was gone. Some people really just need to be put down, man. Story 10. I got my boss to shout at him. I worked in a Chinese shop just after I left school, and this guy showed up every day for weeks, begging me to go out with him, telling me how pretty I am, etc. I got to the point where I was afraid to go to work because he'd started to hint that bad things could happen to girls who aren't nice, so I told my boss, using my 2 words of Chinese and a lot of sign language because Wang spoke 0 English. And when he came in, she started shouting at him in Chinese. I want you to picture the scene. 6-foot black man with muscles in his muscles being chased out of a tiny Chinese shop by an even tinier Chinese lady with a broom who's yelling at the top of her lungs. I'm pretty sure that the sea couldn't have washed him clean of what she said to him. That's a treasured memory to this day. Story 11. There was a guy in one of my freshman classes who would stare at me all during class. The desks were arranged in such a way that half were facing the front of the room and the other half were facing the opposite wall. This gave us a very clear view of one another. I had a gravity storm while I was walking down the stairs one day and somehow ended up with an impressive gash in the side of my leg. The guy saw the wound the next day and asked me what happened, and the day after that, he came up to my desk and said he had something to show me. He revealed a wound that was in the exact same spot as mine, as well as of a similar length. He told me he had done it for me. This was at the very beginning of the semester, and for the rest of the year, I was extremely vigilant about only looking straight ahead in that class so as to not make eye contact with him. I pretty much never saw the left side of my world events classroom. That is crazy. Story 12. When I was a junior in high school, a friend of mine introduced me to one of his friends. I talked to him every now and then. He said he was interested in me. I politely let him know I didn't reciprocate his feelings. Then the text started. For a few weeks, he would text me very explicit things constantly. This was before blocking was a thing. One night, my dad saw I was upset and asked me what was wrong. I told him. My dad is a psychiatrist. He can stay alarmingly calm in almost any situation, and he's used to dealing with crazy people, so my dad ended up calling this guy and calmly explained to him that he needed to tell his parents about pestering me because the police were going to be showing up at his house soon. The guy started crying, and I never heard from him again. Story 13. Block him on eBay. I'd already blocked him everywhere else, but he friggin' bid on my auction just so he could declare his love, insist I be his mistress, and promise that his Korean fiancé or baby mama really wouldn't mind, that that's normal in her culture. Oh, and also accused me of ripping him off while he was at it, as he didn't actually read the auction text and didn't know the computer I was selling was broken and was missing some parts. eBay. Now that's a stalking medium I haven't heard of before. Story 14. I faithfully prescribed to the act completely freaking insane method to get guys to leave me alone. Cackling maniacally, mumbling about disturbing stuff, humming erratically, and staring with the most disturbed look I can muster are good deterrents. I've also got a guy to stop hitting on me at a party by always redirecting any conversation he'd start up to the subject of crapping myself. I found it absolutely hilarious that there's a guy, somewhere in the world, who knows me as the girl who wouldn't stop talking about crapping herself. This is a fun hobby. Story 15. We lived a town away from each other in a very rural area, so I heard he was coming into my town from friends. I would call my friend who was old enough to drive and have her pick me up. Driving country roads was the only way he wouldn't bump into me. He would also stop by the house, and when my parents told him that I wasn't there, he would camp out in his car waiting for me to come home. I learned quickly that it usually took a couple of hours before he would give up and leave town. This happened a few times a week for a couple of months. Story 16. This was about 8 years ago. I was 17 and volunteered at a nursing home as a part of a high school course. I started talking to one of the older guys that worked there and pretty quickly had a change of heart. He became obsessive and called nonstop and would leave me upwards of 50 texts in a few hours. So I downloaded this recording that would play as my answering message. It had a trio ascending tones play and the familiar message that went something like, "We're sorry, the number you're trying to reach has been disconnected," etc. I just turned my phone off for a night so that he would hear this message and no ringing. It worked, to my surprise, and I never heard from him again after that. Story 17. He had a guy who wouldn't leave me alone at a San Diego trolley station. It was late at night and I was 17 and alone. I walked up to the biggest, scariest looking guy there and pretended like he was my friend. I even gave him a huge hug. Luckily, he immediately understood what was happening and played along with it. After about 2 minutes of me talking to the big dude, the creepy stalker guy left. I thanked the big dude profusely and he was super cool about it. He said I wasn't the first girl he's had to play along with in order to scare off a creeper. Story 18. I've never had a situation where a firm, please leave me alone or I'll take this to the police didn't work. However, the number of times it's come to that is upsetting. When I was an 18-year-old lifeguard at a family pool, there was this 30-year-old dude who'd come to try to talk to me and a few other girls who worked there. He asked me how old I was, and when I said 18, he said, "Ooh, that's a fantastic age." He also then splashed me and said he'd only stop if I gave him my number. He stopped when I got my managers to kick him out. Story 19. I don't know if this fits, but when I was about 16, I was walking home with a male friend. About halfway up a hill, we noticed this strange car illegally parked. Honestly, just looked at each other and didn't give it a second thought. Got to part ways about 2 miles from my house. I lived in town, so that walk wasn't scary or uncomfortable. Plus, I really enjoyed it. Not even a minute after my friend left, that car came around the corner super quickly and proceeded to follow me for about a half a mile. At this point, I'm hyperventilating and have 911 dialed, but not called yet. The sun's going down and he's getting closer. He's out on the door and on something else I couldn't see. I just made a split decision then. I bolted into a bunch of backyards. I don't even know how many fences I jumped. I basically hid in the bushes for almost an hour until it was dark. At this point, I was still afraid to go home or call my mom in case he was still there. I didn't want him to see what a car and home looked like. I basically maneuvered my way through yards and small alleys. These are nice ones with shops in them, not something you'd see in NCIS. I got home, called my friend to make sure he was okay, then blabbed to my mom, then convinced me to file a police report. I haven't heard anything back and it's been 3 years. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 20. I moved halfway across the country to get away from an abusive, stalking ex. He still relentlessly stalks me online many years later. I have no social media accounts with photos, no Facebook, and frequently change UID on sites I post to. Also, to help out a female friend who couldn't get a guy to leave her alone at a concert, I pretended to be her psycho lesbian girlfriend. She's tiny and femme, and I'm 5'8" and athletic. Mostly worked, though the schmuck did ask to see us make out. I told him to screw off. That was actually kind of fun, and we laugh about it now. Story 21. When I was in 5th grade, this kid tormented me, kissing me when I wasn't paying attention, chasing me, stealing my jackets and wearing them. I told parents, teachers, friends. Everyone thought it was funny. I had a teacher make us sit next to each other to work it out, I guess. When she left the room for a minute, with the whole class watching, he did the old yawn and put his arm around me. Right when he lifted his arm up, I punched him so hard in the freaking jewels he fell out of his chair and cried. Never touched me again. Yeah, that's a surefire way to get a boy to stop. Story 22. To be honest, dudes like this are kind of afraid of me. I don't act nice at all. If a guy does anything creepy towards me, I just flip out. I threw a rock at a dude's car whose cat called me once and sprinted toward a kid in high school, ready to deck him in the face. And they always, like clockwork, get scared. High school kid ran off, and the dude in the car just kind of whined and then drove off. Men like this aren't expecting you to fight back, just to politely nod and put up with it. So when you go all crazy, it scares the crap out of them. Story 23. Every time I have to get another man involved to help me. That doesn't seem that ridiculous, but it is. It should not take more than me saying no. The guy in line at a concert grabbed my and when I said, "Don't touch me," he blew up, threatening to get me kicked out of line. How he was just having a good time until I was a witch and didn't stop until his own friend said, "Dude, leave her alone." A couple weeks ago, I was at a bar and a man I had not interacted with at all came up behind me and pulled my ponytail. When I said, "Don't freaking touch me," he tried to hit me. 3 other men had to drag him out of the bar. A couple weeks before that, I found a man none of us knew trying to get my incredibly blacked out friend into his car and actually argued with me that he knew her and would give her a ride until male friend shoved him away. Story 24. Well, after he, fellow classmate, followed me off the bus from my high school and chased me down the street, I collected a record of all his creepy or threatening messages to me, my mom, from the past 3 years and showed them to the school authorities. I sat in a room and had a very tense and scary meeting with him, the cops, the vice principal, and my parents all together. Lots of crying and shaking from both ends. Wasn't enough to expel him for the years of threats that he gave me, but it did leave me alone for a few months before getting expelled for some lame reason just as we were both supposed to graduate high school. Haven't seen or heard from him since. Story 25. The guy was horrible. I was out with a few friends at a club for one of their social get-togethers, and suddenly one of my friends' other friends group had turned up, and I knew one of them had a crush of some sort on me. He kept touching me. I had bruises from it. I don't recall him being intoxicated, though. I kept telling him to stop firmly, and he kept going. I ended up having enough because he wasn't stopping, and I was in a position where I didn't feel safe with my friends anymore. I took my leave to the bathroom, called a friend and asked them to become a family member and to call back in 10 minutes with some sort of urgent story so I can legitimately leave the party with no problems against anyone. I changed my friend's name to Mom in my contacts and went back out. It was still overly clingy, and I pretty much snapped and told him to screw off. It got really intense because he pulled me. I just wanted to go. Then my mom called. Till I go, and I answered. She told me my grandmother passed away and they were going to come and pick me up at 5. I didn't tell him anything bar keeping that story and ended up making an exit out of the club. To this day, I have no idea why my true friend said that, but it was somewhat effective. I blocked him on all social media for good measure. Not friends with a lot of them anymore either. They weren't exactly supportive of my negative feedback to his advances. Story 26. Once, this boy cornered me at school and had his friends surround me so I couldn't run away. He kept grabbing me and calling me his doll, stuff like that. Anyway, I told my dad about it. He showed up to the kid's house in full uniform. He was a state trooper and had a talk with the kid and his dad about it. The next day, the kid apologized to me repeatedly and told me he'd only done it because I'm so very beautiful. He promised to never ever talk to me again, and he kept his word. All those years we lived in the same tiny town, and he avoided me like the plague. Story 27. I live above a bar on a very busy street consisting mainly of clubs. Unfortunately, the door to my flat is literally on the street. If I want a cigarette, I have to stand on the sidewalk. Especially nights and weekends, it is a constant barrage of being accosted or asking for money. On an off note, intoxicated people will think my door is to the bar when I'm standing directly in front of it and try to barge past me. I've never had any real trouble, but when the going gets tough, I will openly admit to having mono and pretend to attempt to hiss on them. Any other suggestions would be lovely because I have a year lease and hate it. Story 28. After a live music show, some dude comes up to me and goes, "Hey baby, where are you from?" I'm Asian. It's a common pickup line. Barf. He aggressively offers me a substance, like puts it in my hand and pushes my hand to my face. I say no thanks because I can tell where that is going. I prance off to dance with my friends, but 10 minutes later the same guy catches me at the bar and grabs me with both arms and tells me we're doing shots. I'm not interested in getting messed up with this guy. He's showing ulterior motives. Heck, it's not even ulterior, it's completely obvious and upfront. In an attempt to avoid an argument because this guy is not taking no for an answer, I tell him I have to use the bathroom so I can get out of his hold, but he tells me, "No, you aren't," and tightens his hold on me. At which point I'm now afraid of this dude, so I lift my knees and drop my weight hard, slip down and out of his ridiculously tight grip and roll away. Thank you, self-defense classes. Run out of the venue and text my friends bye and don't look back. So messed up. Story 29. I ghosted him and had put his Facebook page on my Facebook page because he was inboxing people, asking them to tell them that I was still alive and to pass on that he still loved me. We had a thing when I was younger, but he lied too much for my liking. We tried again, but the lying was still there, but the attraction wasn't. I tried to say I just want to be friends, but he kept insisting that I'd feel different after I kissed him, that I would definitely want to sleep with him then. So I simply blocked him on everything and left. My friends and I were convinced he had simply given up, until he began trying to contact my housemate on Steam last weekend. So now I guess I'll wait and see what happens next. Story 30. I once sent a guy to Japan. I'm pretty sure he's a Redditor, so I won't give too many details, but I found a job he couldn't refuse and applied for it using his name and information. He was offered the job. Last I heard, he was back there. We dated for a couple of years, and the breakup was amicable at first, but he began following me and leaving weird notes, talking to my friends about conversations we'd had. We hadn't. He was trying to manipulate them into giving more information. I later found out he'd read my journals, too. Unintended side effect. I think he really liked the job and definitely loved Japan. Now we're both happy. I hope and think. Story 31. One summer I was working at a festival and planned to meet with some colleagues for a drink after my shift at the bar right outside the festival's limit. I finished a bit early, so I figured to go to the bar first and have a drink by myself while waiting for them. Well, the second I sat down, some guy sat down at my table and started hitting on me. After telling him several times that I wasn't interested, he still wouldn't leave me alone, so I walked out of the bar thinking he would get the message. He didn't. He followed me outside, then back inside when I tried to avoid him. I had to go out again and walk back into the festival crowd to try and lose him. It was an open festival downtown, so you didn't have to pay or wait in line to get in. He kept on following me, so I started to run in a circle in the crowd until I completely lost him and called my colleagues to tell them to meet me at the different bar. I didn't go to bars by myself anymore. Story 32. For the most part, I'm straight up honest and tell creepers and non-creepers alike that I'm just not interested. One time, though, I was having a girls' night out with friends. I was not single, but my friends were. We were talking to a couple guys, one of whom would not stop hitting on me. I tried to be a good wingman, deflect him onto a friend. He's not having any of it. I don't want to straight up tell him no because my friends are talking to his friends and it could ruin the mood or whatever by being a witch. So I just started talking about how much I enjoy playing Pokemon. Long before Go came out and he just walked away without another word. Success. Story 33. A few years ago, I was in my dentist's waiting room. There was only one other person there and kept looking at me. I was reading but could sort of see him over the top of my book. Finally, he started talking to me, saying hi, asking my name, that kind of thing. It just had kind of a creepy vibe. Ladies, you know what I mean. I gave terse one-word answers and put my book up in front of my face, but that didn't deter him. He asked if I had a boyfriend. I lied and said yes, figuring that would be the end of things. Oh no. He wanted to know boyfriend's name, how we met, what he did for a living. It was one of the weirdest interactions I've ever had in my entire life. I was so uncomfortable but couldn't make myself just say, I don't want to talk to you. I've never been so glad to see my dentist in my whole life. When he finally came out to get me, I jumped out of my seat and practically ran to the exam room. Story 34. I was at the beach once for a summer work party and had one of my coworkers approach me while I was swimming. He started out nicely enough, but he quickly was having trouble staying a reasonable distance away from me in the water, touching my swimsuit every time the tide pushed him towards me. I was trying to get back to shore as quickly as I could. Once we got in standing depth, he was full on grabbing me, trying to get me to kiss him. I finally runched away and made it back to where our group was. Everyone's reaction was, Ooh, Austin Q, we saw you and Guy in the water together. You don't have to hide your romance from us. As though what he did was adorable. I told I was an unwilling participant and they continued to tease me for the rest of the party. It even became a running joke at work about our secret flirtation. Story 35. Hiding with some nuns and then running a lot. I was at a Home Depot and was looking at some lighting, which was in the back corner of the store where no one else happened to be. All of a sudden, someone starts talking to me. Someone who's standing frighteningly near me who I didn't hear get to that spot. He says, I want to go out for coffee with you. Give me your phone number. It was very strong, creepy van vibes. That's very specific, but completely my first thoughts of him. I said, I'm sorry, that's nice of you, but I'm seeing someone. I wasn't. He gets really mad, like he's having trouble controlling it. He tried asking if we could get coffee anyway, as friends, still trying to get my phone number, and I was just like, I don't think so. I started walking towards more people. As I'm walking down aisles, I realize he's walking one aisle over. I switched aisles, and I'm no longer sure where he is, but I have a really bad feeling. I'm up towards the front of the store and sort of panicking. There are these 4 nuns waiting in line to check out. For some reason, I felt like he wouldn't come and get me if I were with the nuns, so I got in line with them. I've sort of calmed down. And then I get to the door to leave. It's a warehouse-type store, so there are like 7 doors open in the front. The guy is standing in front of the door I'm about to exit. I took off running. It's a big parking lot with a bunch of stores. I run a few stores down into a Safeway, through the Safeway out a different Safeway door, cut across the parking lot into a Starbucks, which only has one entrance. Wait a few minutes, then run to a car that isn't mine as though the parking lot randomly eventually getting to my car and driving away. Story 36. I was a friend's double date every weekend. She paid me and I was pretty desperate for extra cash. I had no interest in the party life, so I usually sat at the same booth. Bouncer saved it for me, alone, and kept watching my friend's purse and all her friends' purses. Bouncers knew me well and knew few to no males were welcome to my booth. I'd just gone out of a really bad relationship, that's why I had zero interest in men. I didn't want anyone near or to touch me. I needed time to heal and get over crap. The bouncers knew this as they were all friends with my friend. One day, some guy sat at my booth. I looked at him and politely said I'm not interested. Most usually, leave no issues. This guy refused and kept bothering me. I asked him politely to leave, but he remained. The bouncer came over and asked if he was welcomed. The guy said yes. I said no, he won't leave. The bouncer made him leave and said to never come near my booth again. It started getting packed and the bouncers were too busy working to notice this guy really pestering me. I grabbed my purses, only had one that night, and quickly headed to the patio where I knew I'd find 2 7-foot male friends. I wedged myself in between them and told them I had a guy problem and to please help me. They put their arms around me to claim me as theirs. What the heck, the guy still tried to bother me. Both guys turned around and aggressively told the guy I belonged to them and to F off. The guy stared at me for the rest of the night, so I stayed with the guys as the guy was probably dangerous and I'm only 5'2", was shy. Story 37. Had my mom tell him I passed away. We worked a seasonal job together when I was 17. Everyone on the crew had a list of each other's phone numbers, and after the season was over, the call started. We didn't work directly together, so I had no clue who he was. I just knew the face that matched the name. Asked me to grab dinner with him because he just needed someone to talk to, and I agreed. Get to the restaurant and he's there with his mom. He then launches into his whole life story, his battle with depression, the meds he takes, and his mom is completely silent like this is totally normal. Meanwhile, I'm freaking out because I'm definitely not in any position to be someone's emotional crutch, and I'm trying my best to hide my discomfort. I pretend I forgot about a thing I had to get to, pay my tab, and make my exit. He calls the next day, and I ignore it. Same for the following day. Then my mother answers. My mom's not the type to lie by any means. Furthermore, she's exactly the type to ask questions. When she comes to announce that Creepy McCreeperton is on the phone for me, I panic. Before I can stop myself, the words, "Can you just tell him it passed away?" come out of my mouth. She looks at me quizzically for a minute, but I guess she saw how freaked out I was by this and relays the message. Now Creepy already has it in his head. I'm home since Mom put him on hold, but she says something to the effect of I still think she's here. It was so recent and it's been hard on all of us. He accepts this and ends the call. And I'm just waiting for the interrogation. But it never happened. He stopped calling after that, and my mom was actually there for me for the first time in 17 years. No questions asked. Story 38. I was at a karaoke night with a few friends, and this guy kept bothering me from a number. I politely declined because I wasn't interested and didn't want to lie or lead him on. He kept badgering me, and after the final no, he called me a witch for not wanting to give him my number. I said, "You know what? I'm sorry. I really was being a little bit of a witch just then. I'll give you my number. Just don't call until you're alone, okay?" I showed him my number on my phone screen, and he went on his way. I had the rejection hotline local area code number saved in my phone for laughs as my number, so I gave him that. When you call it, it gives you a long lecture about why you could possibly have been given this number. I bet he wasn't so happy when he was finally alone that night. Story 39. He discovered I was a girl in World of Warcraft. He immediately tried to join my guild, denied, and then asked me to marry him several times. He kept sending me random crap from his inventory because copper ore just screams "take me now." The awkward love poems only a basement-dwelling troglodyte can come up with. Again, we'd never spoken, but he wanted to marry me. So like a wise and intelligent person, I gave him my phone number. He texted me as Johnson. I responded with pictures of a dog or cat with arrows pointing right at the back. Those arrows were labeled with his name. This was the only communication I ever sent him. No words, just those. He gave up after about 3 days. Story 40. I've had to do lots of things. Pretend a guy friend is on a date. I've pretended to be on the phone and talking to someone to be able to ignore a guy hitting on me. Call the police. Literally. Pretend I'm still together with my ex. Gag. I even told all my guy friends in my neighborhood that a neighbor pestered me so they'd be a bit more menacing when they saw him around and he'd get the hint to leave me the heck alone. Online, just block and ignore, repeatedly. I've had guys make up new online profiles to talk to me after I've blocked them. I've had to report people to group admins who pestered me and have them kicked out of the groups I'm in. I don't know, I'm like a magnet for weirdos and guys who can't take no for an answer, I guess. Unfortunately, I still get pestered and hit on by guys all the time. A lot of guys don't take no for an answer easily. What's something men do that come across as creepy? When I was around 20 or 21, I was working as a barista. We had floor-to-ceiling windows on one side of our cafe in a busy area. Some guy, maybe mid-30s, was walking by outside and it looked like he was coming into our store. Locked eyes, so I offered a half-hearted customer service smile, as one does. He turned the corner to the front of our store, blocked partially by a brick wall, no windows, but never came inside. Didn't think much of it and just continued on with my day. About 3 to 4 hours later, my shift was over. I walked outside to the parking lot and I heard a, "Finally, you're off work." I turned around, expecting to see a coworker or maybe a regular customer I was friends with or something. Nope, it was the guy I locked eyes with for 0.5 seconds several hours earlier. He was sitting at a table on our patio but was blocked by the brick wall so I couldn't see him through the windows from inside the store. I was really startled and didn't know what to say. He then proceeded to tell me that he saw me smile at him through the window, so decided to wait outside of my work for several hours so he could talk to me. I mean, it would be one thing to come into my store, buy a coffee, and try to talk to me, although I still wouldn't appreciate that while at work. But this man waited outside of my work for several hours. I was so creeped out and made an excuse like, Oh, actually, I'm just adjusting the umbrellas in the patio. I still have work. And then I went straight back inside to the back where I waited for a full hour until my coworkers confirmed it was gone. I was so scared and had male coworkers walk me to my car for like a week. Maybe he just wanted to talk to you about your car's extended warranty. Story 2. When I was 19, I was a phone girl at a local pizza place. I would answer the phone and take people's orders for carry-out or delivery. One time, this guy called and said he was placing an order for delivery. By the end of the order, he changed his mind and said he wanted to order carry-out. The dude shows up and my coworker helps him and he says, "You're not the girl I talked to on the phone. I want to talk to that girl." I realize he's talking about me and I ask what's wrong. He then tells me he thinks I have a really soothing voice and I should do ASMR. I was like, okay, that's weird, but relatively harmless. The guy gets his food and leaves. We can see him sitting in his car for like 15 minutes. He then came back in the store with a map and started asking me a bunch of weird questions for directions to somewhere. I said, "Why can't you just use Google Maps? I see you have an iPhone." I point to his phone. As I point, I see him try to hide the screen. He had the audio recorder pulled up. This weirdo came back in the store with a thinly veiled excuse of asking for directions because he was trying to record my voice. It was so creepy. I told him, "Wait 1 second." I went to the back and told some coworkers what was going on. A friend of mine who worked in the kitchen, a 6'2" musclehead, walked out and was like, "I'm great with directions. My girlfriend is terrible at them," while gesturing to me. "Let me help you." Suddenly, the guy didn't need directions anymore. So yeah, I'm going to say whatever that was creepy. Story 3. I was walking up the stairs at a train station carrying a large suitcase the other day. A guy wanted to help and just took my suitcase from me without asking. I had to tell him 3 times I was okay and didn't need his help. The suitcase wasn't particularly heavy, just big. Don't just grab other people's stuff without asking. Just wanted to help, but still. There's a difference between offering help and forcing help. Story 4. I have a coworker. I had never met him, officially, before we started working at the same place 2 years ago. He gave me a weird vibe from the get-go, but I just avoided him as much as I could, which was easy because we don't have the same job at our facility. After a while, he starts talking about 2 brothers that I do know and how he was friends with one of them. Okay, fine, a little creepy. I knew them too. Then he asks when I moved from X address where I lived with my ex. I shut that down, and straight outside, that was a creepy comment that made me uncomfortable. I now avoid him even more at work, but a few months pass and he starts asking how long I lived at Y address, and that it was then I was hanging out with a specific group of people. I told him how he knew about 2 past addresses and who my friends were since I never met him before. Oh, he and that one brother sometimes talk about me. I've not spoken to either of those 2 brothers for 5 years. That crap is creepy as heck. Story 5. Touching my lower back when they walk past me. Strangers do this if I'm in a crowded area and it's weird. I don't see guys doing this to other guys. They sit right next to you despite having more than plenty of options. Once I was sitting on a bench in my uni and some guy sat directly next to me, like shoulders touching and starting very quietly while eating a sandwich. Then he started asking where I lived, and when I kept trying to divert it, he kept pushing, so I made up a phone call and ran away. Story 6. As my wife doesn't work from home, she has to be out in the world a lot more. I'll paraphrase what she said recently. What the hell's with male Uber drivers and you going to your boyfriend's house? Such an obvious way to open up whether I might be DTF. Same goes with when she opens the door for DoorDash. She says there's always fishy types of small talk that weird her out, usually around her schedule and whether they've seen her at insert shop here. She doesn't like when some strange dude wants to time or place her. Questions like, "Hey, how's your day?" are well and good, friendly, but the personal stuff's gotta go. As such, I've stopped shushing the dog when she barks at Dashers. I want them to know there's a dog that only needs the word go right behind this pretty lady who tipped you well, sir. Story 7. Tell you their life story. I had one guy in a liquor store recently that decided to tell me what each of his tattoos meant. When he got to his kids, he told me their life stories. I finally saw my excuse to get away and he grabbed my hand and kissed it. I saw him recently and I said hello but just walked in. I heard him calling me a witch. I try so hard to be nice, but kissing my hand I can't take. No, that's just crossing a lot of boundaries. Story 8. Here's a list of creepy crap men have done in the last year to me. Following me around the neighborhood. This has happened several times. Sometimes they will stop and talk to me, which leads to the next 2 points. Cornering me in my car to talk and not letting me leave. Demanding intimacy from me. Inappropriate comments in general. Staring for too long. Touching in any capacity, unless we're close, is bona fide creep behavior. Showing up at my work to talk. and just out here creeping on women. It's not all men, but men tend to excuse it when their friend, brother, cousin, etc. out there creeping on women. Story 9. Touch my back or waist unprompted. I've had situations where I'm taking a photo with a stranger, events, tourism, etc. And this guy I've never met before touches the small of my back or loops around to my hip or waist. No, thank you. You can touch my shoulder or arm if you're chill about it, but the waist or small of the back is sensitive and not for casual touch. Hands off, buddy. Also, this is less creepy than it is intimidating, but guys who talk too loud or energetically in non-loud situations. Basically, guys who raise their voice or give off car salesman energy in conversation or at a not loud party. It sets off that inner alarm of, is this guy going to escalate? Even though logically it's probably going to be safe. It's like having a headache. Not annoying enough to go to the doctor, but painful enough that it makes you tired and stressed out. You described that so perfectly. Story 10. I'm a guy and I deliver food, but I have a girl's name. Guys are always waiting outside even though it's a contactless delivery and says to leave at door, and sometimes they call me before I get there and try to hit on me, but you're very disappointed and confused when it's a guy. One guy pestered me one time and I kept $70 of his food and ate it myself. Story 11. Being hit on in the gym. This has happened to me so many times, and even though I understand some people are just trying to shoot their shot, the gym should be a safe space. I come there to work out, sweat it out, and go home, not to find the love of my life. I don't want to be hit on and then have the awkwardness of turning someone down to then feel like they're constantly watching me in between my sets. And I can't avoid them, especially as my gym is not the biggest, so it's a big no to this from me. Story 12. Dude here. I've always hated how men who you're unfamiliar with or have zero connection to outside of being an acquaintance, like a coworker, just feel comfortable touching you. Takes a lot to get under my skin, but when my coworker comes and does that weird shoulder grip massage thing, another saw me sitting, absentmindedly swinging my free arm and snuck up behind me and ran his finger down my palm, thinking he was being funny. Like, who the heck does that? Your creepy coworkers, that's who. Story 13. Where do you live? I get asked this a lot. If I'm alone, I give as vague of an address as I can, but my mom usually gives them the name of our street, which freaks me out. I had many talks with her, but she seems to not see a problem with this. Fortunately, we live in a big city, and our street is one of the main ones, so they can't actually find out the exact address. Story 14. I've been creeped out by men, mostly 40 plus. I can't even go to the corner store without them all stopping and staring, and I'm ugly as heck and wear sweatpants and the ugliest sweater. They do not care. I was followed once by a car walking to the library once to meet up with friends, and whenever they beep or do catcalls while walking down the sidewalk in full normal clothes, can't even say it's my clothes. Some old men are weird as heck. Old man gooners. Story 15. I didn't start dating until I was 22, but there were a few guys on dating apps several years my senior who made comments about my body type and made me feel as though they saw me as a child. Context, I'm 5'3", slender, and have no curves to speak of. Like, oh my god, you're so little or adorable, I want to scoop you up, etc. I had to set my dating preference to people no more than 2 years older than me because of this, and it basically stopped after that. I mentioned this to my female friends, and they all agreed that it felt gross, though my guy friends didn't really get it. Story 16. I'm objectively ugly, so apparently just existing is creepy. I take a long look at myself over the years, and I try to reevaluate my words and actions to see what specifically I'm doing that's creeping some women out. I can't think of anything. I don't stalk women. I don't smell their hair. I don't ask for pictures. I don't send unsolicited pics. I don't say creepy crap. I don't say weird crap. I accept no as an answer. If I get rejected, I just keep it moving, even though I might have my feelings hurt a bit. I talk to women normally. Women are just people. I grew up with a mom and sisters. I was raised by predominantly women. It wasn't until senior year of high school I realized that a lot of young American women have a hard time differentiating the difference between the person that is genuinely a creep and someone they don't find attractive. Finding them attractive is creepy. What really drove that epiphany is witnessing a platonic lady friend of mine rejecting a man. It was nice and made his move. She rejected him and he moved it along. He seemed nice and he was a decent-looking dude, very respectful. I asked her why she wasn't interested in him. She said he's creepy. I asked what specifically he did that was creepy. She couldn't really find a legitimate excuse. She apparently finds him creepy because she simply doesn't find him attractive. I even explained to her that it doesn't make him creepy. If he was being and stalking you, that would be creepy, but he wasn't. The more I talk to women, the more I get the same kind of logic. Story 17. DMing me over and over even though I haven't replied to the last several messages. I used to give the benefit of the doubt when I'd get messages from guys, most of whom interacted with me in the comment section of a post within an FB group, but after almost all of them tried to make it more than just a friendly discussion by trying to overstep the platonic boundary, even after I informed most of them that I'm a lesbian, I now have no patience for any attempts of a private interaction. I immediately block any guys who DM and or friend request me. Story 18. I have very flexible fingers. I can bend my fingers back to touch the top of my hand, and I had guys go all, "Ooh, you have flexible hands. What can they do?" vibes. Like, sir, how the heck do you think fingers bending backwards is going to do anything good? As a woman, I think the most creepy thing a man can do is catcall or talk to you as if you're an object and just expect they can shoot their shot without communicating or even greeting. I work at a club, and Saturday night there was this group of men sitting in the lounge area. They bent down, all lady-like because I had a dress on, to pick up the rubbish, and the man suddenly said, "Wait, while you're down there." I noticed him and the other man were laughing, and it made me uncomfortable. Later, the other man asked if I have a boyfriend. I said yes, and he asked if he was strong, and I said yes, he's also over 2 meters tall, which he is. And the man asked if he can fight, so I said to him, he's a humble and passive person. Although my boyfriend used to fight underground somewhere back in the day and has knocked out men with one shot, because my boyfriend is better than having to prove he is stronger and better. The man's ego was hurt and then asked if he would share. I said never, and he started laughing, and then I left. He even tried to put his arm around me at some point. I would not want your boyfriend to know about that. Story 19. Men commenting on women's height. I'm an average height Caucasian male at 180 or 5'10", and I used to date a lady who was a bit over 188 or 6'2", and the comments she received about her height were really disturbing. Disturbing to the point that she picked times to go to the grocery store at late or early hours when there were only a few other people besides her in the store. And yes, I received my amount of these comments as a shorter half, and these comments usually come from white males around 50 years old. Story 20. Be unattractive. Attractive guy comes up to a girl at a club on the dance floor and asks her to dance. Maybe she's a bit excited, or if she's in a relationship, she's at least flattered. Unattractive guy comes up and does the same thing. Ew, creep. As a guy, you kind of have to put yourself out there and accept that a lot of making a move will seem creepy to a percentage of people because they're not attracted to you. That percentage changes based on how attractive you are. So if you're fairly unattractive, 90% of what you do may seem creepy, but if you never make a move, there can never be a yes. You just have to accept the fact that a lot of people will find you creepy and you need to take your chance anyways. That is just sad. Story 21. Male with an NSFW account. You've been warned. But other guys talking like women owe them something while putting in minimal to zero effort, thinking they're enough. I have a job and a car and independence. Why won't they sleep with me? Maybe it's because you're waiting to be congratulated for being a normal human being, Mark. I hate it when anyone just doesn't understand that other people are not on earth to serve them, but to figure out how you can help each other make such tough lives easier. Story 22. The following are all considered creepy by women unless you're exceptionally good looking or filthy rich. Then it's creepy, but not a problem at all. Smiling, not smiling, say hello, not acknowledging them, hold a door, not hold a door, make eye contact, making no eye contact, walk in the same direction, exercise in the same area, work close by, look around a room, sit down, stand, offer to have them use something before you do, not offer for them to use something first. Raise your hand in a gesture of thanks if they yield when driving through a narrowed space, driving past without indicating anything. Say excuse me if you need to get by a space they're blocking, offering to help, not offering to help. Wear sunglasses outside in direct sunlight. Relieve the pain you're experiencing by adjusting yourself, because they never adjust themselves when experiencing discomfort out in public. Introduce yourself, not introduce yourself. Offer information, not offering information. Being direct, not being direct. Offering your seat, not offering your seat. Apologize, not apologizing. Sounds like you just can't read social cues to me, buddy. Story 23. After a handful of texts and a few short phone calls, I met a guy for lunch. I then ended it. Hard to end something that hasn't really started, hence the quotes, with a brief but clear enough text message relaying that I didn't want to continue this. He then begged for me back. He called me multiple times. I ignored all calls. He sent multiple messages that were pages and pages long. I responded to the first few by being respectful, brief, and remaining firm in my stance by repeating myself, before ignoring the rest and blocking him. He then had his younger sister send me a message through Instagram. I sent the sister a very firm and even clearer or harsher message back. 3 months later, he sends me $200 worth of gift cards and a long, rambling voice message to please contact him. After that, I had my attorney draft a letter explaining that I'd already made myself clear multiple times that I didn't want contact from him or anyone else in his life. And I view this as pestering and will be pursuing legal action if he didn't leave me alone. Still never used those gift cards. By the way, he got my email from my public LinkedIn and I never personally gave it to him. Beyond grateful I didn't have my home address. Also, we were immature teenagers. This happened in our mid-20s. So I'd say not taking no for an answer when you're early into dating is pretty freaking creepy and disrespectful. Story 24. Continuously flirting with compliments about my appearance when I'm clearly uncomfortable. Yes, I know I'm pretty to most people, and no, I don't want that to be my entire personality. I have issues with compliments now because 9 times out of 10, they are visibly disappointed in who I am as a person because it doesn't match my appearance. Gentlemen, if a woman is smiling nervously, saying thank you very quietly and avoiding eye contact, they're not flattered. They're uncomfortable but don't know how to tell you without being rude or seen as witchy. I'm working on communicating my discomfort more because as someone on the spectrum, I realize it's unfair to expect someone to pick up clues like this without being directly told. However, it is rather frustrating when I feel my body language is obvious but ignored in hopes of wearing me down. Pretty sure some guys notice but just don't care. And guys like that don't deserve nice things, or even relationships, for that matter. Story 25. Honestly, men who can't read when a woman is clearly uncomfortable or uninterested really make my skin crawl. Even if you're just trying to lightly flirt, if she's barely answering, facing away, avoiding you, or whatever, it's time to stop. Had this happen to me while out with friends last week. One of them brought a guy we'd never met and he just kept asking me questions about myself that were very obviously leading up to offering me a drink and flirting. I was trying very, very hard to shut the conversation down and get away from him without having to say it outright, and he just did not take the hint. I know not everyone has great social reading skills, but holy crap, dude. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 26. In my experience, creepy is generally summed up as assuming a level of familiarity or intimacy that you have not earned. To me, it feels like someone who is afraid of rejection just completely bypassing that step and acting like they're already been accepted right off the bat. So they behave around you like they're an old friend or family member and expect the kind of trust and access to you that would entail. You barely even know this person. Basically, if they skip the step where they could have been rejected, it's all the more reason to raise your suspicions that there are reasons that they should have been. Story 27. When they have access to your personal information, full name, birthday, address, cell number, etc., due to their job, and then use that to hit on you. What the heck goes through someone's head when they take a stranger's private info from a workplace database and text them trying to get something? I've had this happen with a couple cable installers over the years, and the guys who did maintenance in my old apartment complex, it made my skin crawl that these men had been inside my home and knew I lived alone. I complained about it to their management every time, but it was never taken seriously at all. I even had screenshots of the inappropriate text, so can't see how it wasn't a fireable offense. Sue them. Might even make money. Story 28. I was a bartender at 21 years old. I was really good at it because I paid attention to the crowd really well. I was in the middle of the calm before the storm on a Friday afternoon, waiting for the crap show to start. A young woman came in and sat down by herself and had a drink. The night started to kick up a little bit, and the guy who was pretty much half in the bag when he came in sat down next to her and started talking to her. I was hitting on her really, really hardcore. So hardcore that even I was uncomfortable, and I'm not a small dude. I could kick that guy's bum all day long. It was just creepy. She was visibly uncomfortable, yet he kept with his advances and kept asking her where she's from and what she does, and why she's in the bar by herself. I don't know that girl's name, never got it, didn't know her, never saw her before, and never saw her after. But I walked over to her and we locked eyes and I said, "When Sean gets in, I'm off. Are you still coming over tonight?" The connection happened immediately, and without missing a beat, she smiled slyly and said, "Yeah, if I'm still invited. I just want to swing home and get some clothes to sleep in." The guy looked up at me and mumbled some half-meant apology and dismissed himself. He paid his tab and left the bar. She smiled gratefully and said thank you. She paid her tab and said bye, and I never saw her again. One of my most proud of myself moments. Story 29. Be unattractive. This is a literal fact, and most guys know this to be true. The creepiest thing a man can do or say is being unattractive to the women or women witnessing him. The meme of two coworkers saying virtually the same thing to the same women, having two different responses because of their physical appearance, is factual. If she likes you, if she's seriously into you, You can say some outlandish crap and she'll still want you. If she finds you unattractive, she's already made up her mind that anything you say or do will be unattractive. And the amount of work you need to put in to change your mind is simply not worth it. Move on and find a real catch. Now let's cover the not all argument, because that's also true. There are good-looking women who have loving relationships with guys who aren't attractive, likely because they compensate with a great personality. However, having enough money can compensate for a lot of physical unattractiveness. But those relationships would be shallow. Story 30. Being a man, I can say that a large number of men are creeps, including the good-looking ones. It is just that it will be perceived differently. Everything depends upon how good-looking, rich, well-dressed you are. A good-looking guy will get away with being persistent because apparently he is charming, but an average-looking guy will be labeled a creep. Not being on the receiving end of this, but just observing, I've seen a large number of men staring and catcalling. There is often a delicate balance between introducing yourself or being a creep. One can never be sure, so just avoid it at all costs. Also, catcalling sucks, and no woman ever wanted that. Story 31. Naturally, there are plenty of people doing the be attractive shtick, but that isn't what it is at all. Even if most people can't state it, there is a very straightforward way to understand what creepy is. Creepy is a sense of being manipulated into making choices that are risky, counter to our own interests, or otherwise not what we choose for ourselves if we had all the facts. It is the sense of being deprived of choice and agency, the management of circumstances and attitudes rather than overt coercion. A haunted house is creepy because of the sense that relying on the presumed safety of familiar house elements could be putting you in danger, and moreover that there is some malevolent intelligence choosing to mislead you in this way. A vampire is creepy because he uses charm, guile, and hypnosis to get into people's homes or otherwise isolate and physically harm them in ways they obviously would reject if he were direct about his intentions. People approaching members of their preferred gender are creepy for entirely similar reasons. Steamrolling over women's objections is evidence that someone is so fixated in his fantasy of how things could play out that he's ignoring clear signals that the woman does not want things to play out that way at all. Asking a woman with a book what she's reading or asking a woman with headphones and what she's listening to are closely related. Those are clear, I'm not interested in conversation signals. A creep is depriving his target of agency by simply ignoring it. Taking liberties with personal space, physical contact, and the like is evidence of an almost certainly escalating pattern of behavior towards an undesired outcome. The hand on the hip can be played off as innocent because it is objectively relatively harmless, but the intention is to escalate. The next transgression is always only slightly worse. The left uncheck quickly turns from you're making a big deal over nothing to you've been leading me on. It's creepy because the entire pattern is meant to deprive someone of the opportunity to simply say no thank you without that rejection being somehow blameworthy in their part. Taking adjacent seats, and there are plenty of others available, offering unwanted rides, frequently, conveniently showing up where someone else is, or otherwise trying to engineer isolation. Intimacy or interaction is creepy, again, because it's using innocent pretext to create a situation with a less innocent subtext. Trying to get a foot in the door with something non-objectionable to find facing rejection over an intention one anticipates might be objectionable. If more attractive people do not get called creepy as often, it is not because they are not creepy, but because the contact is initially wanted. So there's less chance for them to act out in creepy ways. Attractive people are fully capable of being just as creepy as anyone else, because creepy is all about how someone tries to get their way at the expense of someone else who doesn't want to give it to them. Attractive people can be creepy, and more importantly, no one has to be. Story 32. Okay, so I don't know if this is something that men do, like as a regular thing, but it happened to me and it might have happened to others. I'm a guy. This happened at the office. There was this guy who actually seemed pretty nice, but somewhat socially awkward. After some time, however, he started to greet me in very weird ways. Like he touched me in the shoulder for a long time after saying hello, or in the arm, or even the neck. At first I thought, this is weird, but well, what the heck can I do? He once touched my arm and just ran his hand through my entire arm. I was so freaking creeped out. After that, I talked to a colleague and she expressed the same feelings of repulsiveness toward the guy. A year goes by, he's still all touchy and weird. One day he comes to say hello and goes for the kiss. In my country, we usually say hello with a kiss on the cheek, mostly when saying hello to girls, but it's okay to do it between men, just not as common. I always try to go for the handshake, but this time he kind of grabbed me from the back of my head and planted a kiss on my forehead. Kind of froze. Seriously wasn't expecting that. So a week later, I decided to talk to one of my superiors about the incident. Apparently everyone knows the guy's a creep. On the list of the creepy things he does, there is going outside for a smoke so as to spend time watching people pass by. There's a school nearby. Saying incredibly inappropriate things to my female coworkers, even to our boss. Apparently, I'm not the only one he touches in weird ways. He does that to everyone in the office. The worst part is he still works here, because who knows why. I mean, I'm not sure if what he does is reason enough to fire someone, but what the hell? Man, it's a ticking time bomb for something worse. Story 33. Texting a girl who hasn't responded back. When I was 21, I was out at a club with some friends and danced with this guy. I ended up exchanging numbers with him, and we talked for a few days, but I wasn't interested. I ended up ghosting him. Yes, I realized that was immature, and I should have told him I wasn't interested. However, he continued to text me every other day. Then eventually it dwindled down to once a week, then once a month. This continued for over a year. It really freaked me out. I don't understand what he was thinking. Story 34. I'm an abundantly happy person in all situations. Lots of women take this the wrong way. They think I'm hitting on them if I speak to them. I speak to everyone equally. I serve everyone from millionaires to beggars in my job, so it comes natural to me to interact with everyone the same way. I'm also a monk by choice of 30 years, so I often have to check myself. Do not speak to women, even when a situation calls for it, even when it's almost a necessity. Because in my experience today, for women under 40, they believe every interaction with a man is the man shooting a shot, trying to get some. There is a 100% chance that is the only reason this human is speaking to me. So it comes across as creepy to make simple observations as we walk through this finite life. I've changed for the better, and people see that for some strange reason I'm enjoying life to the max. That's not normal. We're supposed to be grinding, miserable, recalcitrant, and if you're not, well, then that's just creepy. So the one thing I do, which I would not like to do, is to not converse with women the same way I converse with men, naturally and spontaneously. Because there can only be one reason for spontaneous conversation, shooting your shot, and trying to get some. I'm a gym rat and proud to say I've never spoken to a woman other than employees in the gym in 30 years. But outside the gym, it's hard to decline natural conversation when the situation calls for it. Today's women don't want to hear a word unless it's coming from Tyrone or Chad, because it's creepy. Story 35. Oh, where to begin? A few months ago, I was out with one of my daughters. Yes, a child. A guy yells out of his car, "I had intimacy and I like it." There was no one else around. It was definitely aimed at us. Disgusting. Being called love by men? Disgusting. Being asked if I have a boyfriend so they're not stepping on anyone's toes. Okay, so you never actually wanted to be my friend, you just wanted to flirt or possibly even date me until you found out that wouldn't be an option? Also, so many guys tell me their marital woes or problems with a girlfriend. Creepy. Guys telling me about their weird obsessions. No one asked. Obviously, not in a situation like Ask Reddit, in real life or online. This is a very specific example, and I won't say too much as to not give anything about myself away, but I was part of an online community, and it was mostly a bunch of guys, and they created an account to try and set me up, and they actually had a wiki, like fandom, where they wrote a page about me and talked about the way they had tried to gain my trust. Very, very creepy. But yeah, lots of situations like that. And on a positive note, I've seen polite guys around as well. An example that really stood out to me was recently. I had two of my kids with me and was pushing the stroller and holding hands with the other, and a man was getting out of his car. He saw me, smiled politely, and just went about whatever he was doing. It was nice. A genuine smile that looked courteous, nothing sinister about it, and that was that. Story 36. A lot of things. Just look at this thread. I've basically been conditioned to just never look at or interact with women, ever. It's just not worth it. If I'm at a store and need help with finding something, I'm going to look for a man and ask them where something is. If it's an older woman who looks 60 or who looks tough as nails, I might ask her. This is impossible when I, a big and tall black guy with a really deep voice, I'm in a store like Michael's, because it's an arts and crafts store. I'm an artist and it's literally white women central. Half the women in there look like Karens just wishing for a reason to pop off. All the employees are white women ranging from teenagers to mid-30s, so I'm sure as hell going to avoid that. I'm sure 90% of the time it'd be fine, but that small percent chance, not worth it. I've actually been ordering stuff online lately, especially after the pandemic. A lot of creepy guys, and I'll be blunt. A number of black male criminals have ruined it for everyone. Can't really blame all the times I've been in an elevator with a white lady and she's just glancing at me holding her purse tighter than before. So rather than lose sleep over it, I just don't interact with any women out in public if I don't have to. Still think about this one time I see a little kid, like maybe 3 years old, walking around without their parents in the grocery store. It's been years, so I can't even remember if it was a little boy or girl. I see the mom, white lady, and I try to get her attention to let her know her kid is wandering off. She glances at me and then looks away, and I'm just like, all right. But I keep my eye on the toddler because it's not their fault. They're just little babies. She finally notices her kid is missing. I'm calling out to her again now that she finally notices the kid isn't near her and points out where the kid is. I was maybe 19, in my mid-30s now. Even back then, I knew better than to even get near that kid and bring them back over to her. I've been dealing with scared or angry white lady interactions since I was a kid. She grabs her kid and walks back to her place in line. After interactions like that throughout my life, I'm just glad I've never been arrested for anything. I've had the cops call me multiple times though. Every time the officers see I wasn't doing anything, see I have literally no records at all, and they leave. And every time I was just at home sitting there on the computer. I'm paranoid by nature, so after everything, I'm just fine being walled in. Lol. I'm an introvert anyway. Everyone who has the luxury of not appearing scary to people, good for you, but that's not something all of us get to have. Story 37. I don't want to be one of those people, but ladies, please understand. What you choose to wear to the gym is your business, but do not be surprised when men glance in your direction at least once. In my case, I'll think you're attractive and then continue on with my workout without glancing your way anymore. I'm not being a creep by just glancing. The creeps are the ones who keep staring. My father gave me wise advice after I was married. If you look once, you're a man. If you look twice, you're on thin ice. If you look a third time, you're mentally cheating. Save those thoughts for your wife. Story 38. Just recently, I had a guy send a DM on social media saying he saw my profile on a dating app. You know, one of those ones where you mutually show interest in each other before he connects you to have a conversation. So I ignored the social media message and blocked him, thinking he would take the hint. But I should have known he's not good at reading the room since he decided to find me on other channels after not matching on the app. 2 weeks after the Instagram thing, he somehow searched and found my cell phone number and started texting me. I flat out let him know I'm not interested and to stop contacting me. I don't find it cute or flattering that he researched and perused a complete and clearly uninterested stranger. So many creepy red flags. I looked up his name in the state court cases and found he's waiting trial for second-degree mistreatment, so that's cool. Story 39. When guys go on rants to me about how much they hate women and how women destroy lives, I hear it all the time. It's hard for me to have to listen to as a woman and understand their point of view when they're actually attacking me personally. I asked one guy if there's anything he enjoys at night that might help him get to sleep since he was struggling with sleep and finding coping skills, and he exploded by saying, "Are you trying to put words and thoughts into my head? You're just like the rest." Sir, you called the peer support hotline. I'm literally trying to help you stay out of inpatient and you're attacking me at every chance. Story 40. As a guy, if I'm walking home down any sidewalk and by chance a woman gets on the sidewalk in front of me and walks in the same direction, I'm now a stalker. Even if there's only one way to walk home and I've been walking for 2 miles, just the fact that we're walking in the same sidewalk in the same direction for more than a block, I'm a creep. To avoid this, I sometimes cross the street so I can keep walking but appear to be a stalker, which is what I figure she's thinking. Story 41. I knew this guy in his 30s or 40s that would hang around our youth section of church. I was a completely separate part of the church for just 12 plus. Most of us were 13 to 17, and then this guy. He'd be low on money, so he'd sign up to those clinics for being a test subject for cash. I never saw him hang out with us, but he'd always talk to the girls and acted like he was cool, like close friends with some of them. If I had to pin anyone I've ever met as a potential offender, I'm sorry, but it's that guy. He gave me the creeps, even though he came off as pretty relaxed. I was in the wrong place at the wrong age and just gave off the wrong vibes, and he just suddenly never came around again. Definitely creepy. Story 42. When I was 19, I was covering a night manager shift at a sandwich shop in the town next to mine for about a week. The third to last night was just me and the driver, and we had like 0 customers. I'm prepping for the next day, and this dude starts asking me about my schedule, who my friends are, what school I go to, what classes I take, blah, blah, blah. I never told him anything that was true, of course. He then starts saying that there's a movie he wants to see, but he hasn't been able to get any of his friends to go. I told him that sucks, and I kept cleaning stuff. He then asked me if I would want to go with him. I told him no, I didn't want to. He got snippy, grilling me as to why I didn't want to. I ignored him and went to grab my phone. First, I texted a regional manager about the mistreatment and then texted my father, who was an officer at the time. He dropped everything and made a 20-minute drive in about 10 minutes. I was so freaking relieved when he showed up. I made him a sandwich and he hung out and did work on his computer. I'd ask him questions like how he was liking his new patrol car, if he'd pulled over anyone for crazy speeding, etc., to make it known to this creep that my father was an officer. My regional manager called me and told me he got another driver from another store to cover for the creep and to tell his schmuck to call him. Once the other driver arrived, I told the creep to call her manager and that he was done for the night. He acted so confused and hurt and couldn't understand why he was being excused earlier.
I laughed, and I spent the rest of the night playing music and chatting with the other driver and my father until close. By the way, the creep dude was in his mid-50s, if not early 60s. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.